All right. So, Nikki has come forward to speak her truth. I covered this before. The allegations against, what is his name? Edward Centeno? Is that what it is? Is it Centeno? I think that's what it is. You know, the Among Us guy, like, what's up, guys? 3 a.m. at Chuck E. Cheese, and there's an Among Us backpack eating me or something. You know what I mean? After watching it, here's my take. I'm gonna give you a quick take. You know, because you should watch the video, obviously, but you're not going to. My quick take was this: they started dating when he was 23 and she was 17. That seems to be the case. It was inappropriate for sure, 100%. However, throwing the word grooming at everything, I think, is irresponsible. We have words for a reason. I don't think he groomed her. I think he dated somebody at an inappropriate age, which for whatever reason was fine with her family and his family. That's like more of a red, flag here. When it comes to grooming, that's a much more drawn out, like methodical process of trying to like drive a wedge between other relationships and to try to generate a dependency onto you. It's a very like a long form, deep level of manipulation. So that's not what I see. However, Edward does seem to be kind of an asshole. It's kind of manipulative, kind of a shitty asshole. Not the kind of let's cancel this guy, but like kind of it's like, for me personally, I mean, I never watched his content anyway, but like I don't particularly care for him. I didn't really like his responses. He didn't really address anything. He kind of just, she was like, hey, we started talking when I was 17. He's like, no, we did it. And then he showed an image of him forcing her basically to say that they started talking when he was 18. And then she proved it, that they were talking way before that. Either way, this is her response. It's called I Was Groomed, Hidden in Plain Sight. Again, listen, after we watch this, maybe there's information I just don't know about, but I don't think that there's going to be what we have. But again, I'm gonna go into this with like an open mind. So let's do this.
You know what, man? This video is not for or about aesthetics. This video is to share my story and to potentially help people that are being groomed right now or have been.
I just want to say, like, it does seem like she has like you don't necessarily have to, thank you so much for the sub. You don't necessarily have to have, and thank you for liking my stream. Sorry, I'm just going to mute these for a while. You don't necessarily have to have like some kind of a trauma for you to have been wronged or even violated in a relationship, but that doesn't mean that it's a trauma necessarily. But let's get this going.
Groomed or abused. I just want just one person. If one person watching this video gets something out of it, then that will be enough for me, because I know that I'm going to receive backlash on this video. I've already received backlash on me saying a tiniest bit of my truth on Instagram and providing concrete evidence for that truth.
So I'm Nicole for now. But she's knocked out, and I take a picture of her knocked out as well.
Yeah, it's when she was like 17 and like he got her drunk. And like that's a red flag to me, is when an adult gets a minor drunk. Well, let's not even use adult and minor. When a 23-year-old gets a 17-year-old drunk, Specifically, like in this type of a context. Because you want to know what? I understand parents that get like let their kids drink a little bit at parties, whatever. I don't really care about that. But this is a different scenario.
So yeah, that's what's happening right now at 3:34 in the morning.
Which the truth is that I was groomed at age 17 by my ex-boyfriend who was 23 at the time. I provided evidence and I was still the bitch and the whore and the crazy person. So I expect backlash on this and I accept it. But I hope that at least some of you can find something in this that you can use, because this is not only just me trauma dumping on you guys. This is actually going to be my advice on how to avoid this, how to stop this if you are in a relationship like this, or what to do if you see somebody you love in any type of involvement with someone like this. Whatever, strap in, because today we are going to be talking about the all too common world of grooming and other devious behaviors perpetuated by older men against underage minors. All right, so what is grooming? You probably already know what it is, but by definition, grooming is when someone builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with someone so they can manipulate, exploit, and or abuse them. That is what grooming is. And it can happen to anybody at any age, but it especially happens to underage minors and children in general. Anybody can be a groomer, anybody can be an abuser, even if they look real kind and real happy on the internet. Anybody can be doing that to someone. Grooming is not just a 50-year-old preying on a 10-year-old. Grooming is also your 20-something-year-old homies who have a girlfriend in high school. Like, buddy, if you are a grown adult, don't go out with somebody who has freaking gym class. Like,
so, like, I agree with that 100%. But again, this doesn't establish grooming. Like, this establishes as a very inappropriate relationship, but it doesn't establish grooming. Grooming is a very like intense word, and I like EDP was attempting to groom somebody, right? Grooming is much more predatory. Is much more methodical. It's about like driving a wedge in other relationships, creating dependency. We already talked about this. I don't see this as grooming. I see this as an inappropriate relationship that it was for some reason allowed by both parents. Like, just so you guys know, like, make sure that you guys, when your parents are much more responsible, don't let your children date adults. Don't let your adults date children. Very simple thing. Hit them if they do. That's a little bit of a joke, but also maybe not, you know, at least hit the adults. You know what I'm saying?
what the fuck is wrong with you? For perspective, I just turned 23 years old, aka the same exact age as my groomer. And would I go out with a 17-year-old? Hell no, because I think you have.
It's also something to bring out that like the conversation in society about age of consent and appropriate age ranges is changing, and it's becoming more refined, and it's becoming better. And it's a factor because like 6 years ago we weren't in the same space. You know what I mean? I know it's horrible, but it's something that's honestly somewhat new. It's a much newer conversation that we're having that kind of comes along with like the Me Too kind of a movement, where people are starting to talk about different like sexual assault and different power dynamics that are very important to relationships. And this is one of those power dynamics that's important to a relationship that we haven't really been talking about for a long time.
You have to be in your 20s to truly understand how insidious it is to go after and pursue an underage minor to go out with. Because if you're sane and you're in your 20s, you feel disgusted even thinking about that. And with that out of the way, I really need to give a serious trigger warning because I'm going to be going into a lot of detail about things that have happened to me. And it's just a lot. I put a list right here. Child sexual emotional abuse, physical abuse, okay? I don't want to scare you away, but if this is not the right time for you to be seeing this, then I would recommend not watching it or not watching it right now. It took me from age 17 to nearly 23 years old to understand.
It's also unfortunate that like the age of consent in a lot of states is actually 17 and even 16. That's another problem that we have. I don't even know what state that they were in. It's fucking insane. If you look up the age of consent, let's actually do it like this. So, which one is fucking, they don't even tell you which one is which. Yeah, so if you look at this state here, like this is 18 here. This is 17 here. Even fucking New York, bro. Go figure. And this is 16 here. Like, you'd think that this state, you'd think that this would look a lot better. Isn't that fucking insane? Although I thought age of consent in California was 18, but maybe this is a dated map. Yeah, it was the wrong. Okay, here you go. This is a much different map. Who the fuck made that other map? Okay, but you get my point.
What even happened to me? And not only what my ex has done to me, but I realized that that wasn't even the first time that I was groomed. There's not just one bad apple when it comes to older men. There's a serious societal issue with them preying on vulnerable girls and young women. And growing up, I honestly, unfortunately, seem to be
when we talk about predators, because now when we talk about predator-prey dynamics, we have to understand that like a predator isn't really somebody who does a bad thing once. It doesn't make that person good. But a predator is somebody who engages in like a consistent pattern, right? Like Glenn and Cameron before. It's not like he had one inappropriate interaction where you could chalk it up to maybe being an accident. There was a pattern of methodical behavior of targeting young girls. Like this is when we get into predatory kind of a shit. You know, like if Edward if Edward continuously does stuff like this and engages in a pattern of talking about like girls that are of an inappropriate age range, that would be a pattern of predatory behavior. We haven't seen that right now, not in like the relationship to relationship dynamic. You don't understand what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be like super in defense of Edward. I don't hope that's not what it's coming on. I'm just trying to be contextually accurate. I agree with what a lot of she's saying. I feel like these conversations around these topics need to be done very well. Or I feel like they need to be done very well so that we don't get any misconceptions and then we make sure we're having the right conversation moving forward.
The perfect prey for these types of people. When I was 13, my sister's boyfriend's friend looked at me like he wanted to eat me up. He hugged me and he touched me in a friendlier manner than usual. I even sat in his lap at times. He gave me his number and we started texting. This man was at least 21 or older because he was literally a nurse and he had a career already. He asked me if I could send him sexy nurse pictures. You know, like the Blink-182 album cover. And this scared me away, so I stopped texting him. And that was the end of that. But when I was 14 and I was outside of my...
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like an attempted grooming thing.
a local 7-Eleven right by my high school, I was noticed. And I thought it was a good thing to be noticed when I was 14. I thought it was a good thing to be thought of as beautiful. And it is, but not from an adult. Let's call this guy Peter. He was 19 going on 20. And the first date that he took me on, he took me to Knott's Berry Farm. And when we kissed, the lights went out and I thought that was such a great, good omen. But as soon as he pulled his lips away from mine, he said, "We're gonna be just like rabbits." And at age 14, the idea of being intimate with somebody so much older than me seemed appealing. It seemed like a good thing. I was a virgin. I thought it would be cool to lose my virginity to somebody outside of high school and so much cooler than me. But the kindness that I felt exude from him honestly didn't last very long, especially after he took my virginity. And I would later find out that it was his thing to take young girls' virginities and that he even actually sold to someone. I specifically remember he took note to tell me to watch out for my braces when I went down on him. And looking back on it, I can't believe how his other adult friends and family members stood by and watched as he groomed me and humiliated me. In fact,
Yeah, man, like that's probably, see, this is one of those like really unfortunate things. Is like obviously from what she's saying, she's the victim in all these scenarios. Like these are horrible. Like the problem is, again, like for like adults, there's a lot of communities where it's just like acceptable to do this kind of shit. It's fucking disgusting. You know, like it's fucking, it's obviously gross. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, bro, like, it's really fucked up because like I'm not trying to be like this guy. I'm not trying to make it like into like a race thing, but I feel like it's important to talk about. There are different ages of consent in different countries, and it doesn't matter what like race or whatever you are. What matters is the country of origin that you come from. If they have a lowered age of consent, there's usually less awareness and less caring about like your young child dating a much older person. Like there are areas where it's like age of consent is like fucking 13. So it's like, hey, it's totally fine if like a 14-year-old and like a 25-year-old date, because that's the social norm in other countries. And that's one of the problems, and that's one of the things about like coming to America and like, you know, part of becoming more American is not engaging in those inappropriate relationships. You know, like adhering to our social standards, because obviously, yeah, Brazil's like 13. Yeah, shit's disgusting. It's just a conversation I don't think people have like a lot. We talk about a lot, man. It's unfortunate. It's really fucked up though. But we need to have better conversations about like age of consent and shit like that.
They were literally in on the joke. They would call me Peter's clown because I looked like a clown, I suppose. I was 14 and I didn't know how to put on makeup properly, so that was their little joke. This whole relationship with Peter really introduced me to the idea of normalizing older men making comments about my underaged and underdeveloped body. He'd say things like, "I can't wait till your boobs come in," or "Your boobs look bigger today," or "Maybe you should..."
Here's a age of consent map for like the whole world. So you have like 12 here, like what is this, 15 here, you got like a 16 here. You got some 18s and 19s. You have laws vary by state, which probably means like on less age. Even in America, we're not even close to good. Like our minimum is 16. That's still pretty bad. You know, look at this, Canada, shit like that. Alaska, good for them, bro. But you see how like it just depends on where you come from, how fucking gross like the age of consent is, man. It gets fucking nasty, bro. Shit's fucking nasty.
Should do squats. Fast forward to 17. I'm depressed. I'm nihilistic. There's good friends, few and far in between. And I really touched on this in my Get Ready With Me video, but I had finally found a group of friends that I really liked, and I thought that they liked me too. But it was around this same time that I bonded with someone else. And that was my most recent ex. I commented on one of his pictures and said, "I like your Hey Arnold tattoo." Back then, I let older men quiz me on my 90s knowledge because they'd always say things like, "How do you know about that? You were born in 1998. How?" And just a side note, I used to be ashamed of being born in 1998 because older men would always make me feel stupid about it, while at the same time commenting about how mature I was for my age. And by the way, if anybody is telling you you're mature for your age and is trying to get you...
Yeah, most Europe is age consent 16. Yeah, bro, like honestly, we're still not having the right conversations. Like we really need to tighten that fucking age gap up. We should make it like a 18 standard across the entire United States. And I feel like we should implement laws that make it so that you can't talk, like if you're fucking, I don't know, 18 years old, you can't talk to anybody like under 16 or something like that. This shit's fucking crazy. Because there's still like, you know, your 4-year age gaps and shit. Thing is, nobody really cares. This is the really fucked up thing. I know a lot of people, like, we talk about it and people are like, wow, this is disgusting. This is disgusting. Nobody actually gives a shit. And you see that by, again, like we're talking about Glenn and Cameron again. He's still on here. Nobody actually cares about like these predatory individuals, even bigger content creators. You know, they don't care. They don't really care unless they're forced to care, which is really weird that a lot of people, surprisingly, don't care about kids. It's fucking weird to me.
Your pants, please.
Because this should be a much louder conversation.
Run away as fast as possible because they're just catering to what they think that you want to hear. And my ex was literally no different. We began talking and flirting with each other on April 6th, 2016. He DM'd me first and we struck up a conversation. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "I'm pissed because somebody just crashed into my new car." And in response, I said, "Who cares? It has character now." And he seemed to really like that response. He asked me how old I was and I told him the truth. I told him.
All right, let's read through them again.
But he said, "I'm pissed."
We'll read through it. I'm pretty sure we read these already, but he says, "Hello, my dude." She goes, "What's good, my dude? Why might you be up so late?" And he goes, "I don't know, dude. I never sleep, dude. It's bad. Why are you posting video selfies at this time? Instagram is closed, LMAO." And then she says, "LOL, when does it reopen?" with a sad face. "I just started watching a movie and I find it more interesting than practice death." And then he says, "Wow, practice death. Haha, yeah. Sleep is the cousin of the dead." And in something, and then it goes on.
2016. He DM'd me first and we struck up a conversation. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "I'm pissed because somebody just crashed into my new car." And in response, I said, "Who cares?
I wonder why she didn't show all of them, the DMs.
Has character now." And he seemed to really like that response. He asked me how old I was and
I'm 17. Liar. It's actually LIAR, you stupid ass. Anyway, he says liar. She says, she sends a meme. He says, "Really?" And she says, "I'm serious, LOL. When do you turn -8? He says, and then he starts to 18.
I told him the truth. I told him that I was 17. And he initially made a joke.
Let's see. I already graduated, though, because I'm a baby genius, and I'm not even joking. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just kidding. What the heck are you, 43 and 6/4 in? I'm 16, still young. No, oh my god, yeah, dude. I wonder if he meant that or if he was just joking. This is one of those, like, really unfortunate scenarios, though, because, like, this is the thing, and I want to equate it to, like stranger danger, right? So, we teach children, not to get into vans with candy, with strangers that offer candy, right? Now, we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to teach victims to protect themselves. But because we live in a fucked up society, we do. And that's why we do it. And this is one of those scenarios where when she says, like, "I already graduated," though, she's telling herself a response that has been taught through inappropriate learning, not her fault, that, like, oh, she knows that she's underage, but she's still really mature. And that's really unfortunate. But it comes down to a lack of education thing. And I would even say it's probably similar with him. He probably does. He may not even realize it now. He probably realizes now, I don't really know, that, like, this never should have happened. You should have never talked to a 17-year-old. The second you found out they're 17, they should have been like, "Oh, sorry, bye." Right? It's one of those fucking problems.
Saying that he was 16, which I kind of believed because firstly I was so naive and I just couldn't really tell from his profile, honestly. But he clarified after he said the joke that he was indeed 23 years old. And from my perspective, my 17-year-old perspective, it felt cool to be talking to him. It felt cool to be chosen by somebody so much older than me, somebody who was a skateboarder, somebody who lived in Los Angeles.
I mean, if you think it's cool to be a skateboarder, that's a you problem.
Like the most exciting city here in California. And he
You know, it's so interesting. Sorry, but we were talking about age of consent before, and a lot of people like to bring up in California they have very strict laws about where, like, you can't engage in anybody under 18, or else it's like hardcore illegal. People don't know, and I tell the story every time, is that a while back there was some, like, anti-gay propaganda basically going around talking about how they were trying to normalize gay pedophiles in California. And I think it was called SB 145 or SB 125. I don't really remember, but the law was basically going to make it so that the law as it was then was that if you engaged in vaginal intercourse with somebody between the ages of 14 and 17 and you were within a 10-year age gap, it's up to the judge. It's at the judge's discretion whether or not that would be predatory or whether that would be, like, some kind of child molestation charge. That's fucked up. It's basically okay for, like, a 27-year-old and a 17-year-old to potentially engage. They were expanding that to protect oral and anal sex, to protect LGBTQ people. So, like, I think the law is dog shit in general, but, you know, if you're going to have a dog shit law, at least applied equally, right? That's the whole point. But again, like, I just wanted to bring that up because people are like, no, in California, it's like, no, California's like the worst. California has, like, the worst laws, in my opinion, when it comes to this shit.
He asked me if I was still in high school. And again, I told him the truth. I said that I wasn't attending classes anymore because I went to a continuation school. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like the bad kid school. And you technically stop doing classes before regular school. But my graduation ceremony wasn't going to happen until the end of the year. And the regular high school kids were all still in classes. I just graduated a freaking degenerate, really. He then asked me how long it would be until I turned 18. And I told him my birthday was on November 20th. So part of his whole thing, his whole defense that he's put up the whole entire time, like he's never wavered on this. He likes to defend our relationship by saying this, is that I was close to being 18 when we went out. Okay, so we started talking on April 6th, 2016. My birthday's on November 20th. How is that close? It's not like it even
It was like 8 months.
fucking matters, because as soon as like the clock strikes midnight on your 18th birthday, like you don't immediately get the mind of an adult that has been out of high school for years and years.
The problem I have with that, like that specific argument is, it's like, I agree, like you don't just instantly mature, but when it comes to like a legal perspective, like that's when it becomes legal for an 18-year-old to engage with older people. And you can't shit on like a 23-year-old for that. I kind of feel like it goes against the narrative. Also, not trying to be an asshole, but if she was already out of high school, if we're going to have the what environment are you in conversation, she's not in the high school environment anymore. So you would, we're getting very woke when it comes to this. It was inappropriate regardless. I just feel like sometimes we have these weird conversations about, it's like, oh, well, you don't instantly mature. Like, I agree. I totally agree with that. You don't instantly mature once you hit 18, but we've created that societal standard. And like, if you're an advocate for raising the age of consent, that's totally fine. Like, let's raise it all to 25. You know what I'm saying? Probably not that old. That's one of the things, is like, how old is too old? You know, like I wouldn't be against raising the age of consent to like 20 probably. But you don't really finish developing, I think, until you're 25 years old. But then you're supposed to be a more established adult by then. Although I guess that's more of a social construct.
And knows their way around life. Like, you can't be expected to know how to navigate adult relationships immediately as the clock turns 12 on your 18th birthday. Like, that's just not how it works. If there's a big age gap, then there is a power imbalance. It's as simple as that. So during
Okay, I'm not going to speak from like the 17-year-old talking to 23-year-olds. I'm going to speak to an 18-year-old talking to a 24-year-old. I hear this conversation a lot where people are like, well, there's a really big power imbalance. Like, even though you're 18, doesn't mean that's okay to talk to 24-year-olds. Listen, when you're 18, you're deemed an adult in general. That's usually when you're out of high school. Maybe that's what we should make it. Once you're out of high school, you're deemed an adult. I do think that like environments do have a pretty like a pretty large maturity impact. Like if you drop out of school at 16 and you've been working for 2 years, you're going to be more mature than somebody who's like 18 still in high school. You know, however, like we can't really adjust for all these fucking nuances when we're doing this. When it comes to the law, we have to have like a pretty straight, reasonable standard. You being 18 and not being experienced in relationships when it comes to dating 24-year-olds doesn't make you a victim. It means that, like, yeah, the 24-year-old definitely has a power over you. He could definitely manipulate you into having sex with them in a way, like, they're more mature. They might know relationships more. They might be more, like, mature, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But life is about learning. So we can't be like, hey, you're 18, they're 24. Well, they're abusing you. Well, no. You know, we have to like understand that you still have some agency over yourself. Again, inappropriate relationship, but like we're talking now about the fundamental idea of like you turn 18, like, oh, you're not instantly mature. It's like, yeah, but not everything can be abuse. Like you can, what's the new law? Oh, 18-year-olds can only date 18-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like, how far does it go? Like, I do find it inappropriate for an 18-year-old and like a 25-year-old to date. That's really fucking weird to me. But also, it's legal. And they're not being abused. They're just inexperienced. But how do you get experience in life? By experiencing life. I'm just saying.
In the course of the next few days, after we started talking in April, I basically started lying to my mom and tell her that I was going to like this friend's house or this friend's house for a sleepover every single night. And in reality, I was going out with him and we were drinking together all night. On our
Hey, listen, moms, call the house that you think that they're going to or something. That's us.
First date together, he took me to a park after we went to the liquor store and he bought a bottle of Peach New Amsterdam and Cactus Cooler.
See, now this is like this is a newer conversation for me, but like adults getting people who can't legally drink drunk is a very uncomfortable conversation, because now you have an inappropriate age gap and then you have alcohol, and alcohol is cool. Everybody loves alcohol. It's so cool. So kids are more like into alcohol. And then getting a kid drunk, it's going to it lowers anybody's inhibitions. But now you have a young person. Like, I see that as a serious red flag. I don't know exactly how I would define it. It's certainly inappropriate. It's a red flag. But that's like a very complicated kind of a conversation that involves like a lot of different parts. But it's definitely like a red flag to me.
Why cactus cooler? Because I was 17 and a teenager, and I barely had any drinking experience. Like, yes, I had gotten drunk before on the train tracks with like a 40 ounce with all my punk friends, because that's what little punk girls do. However, it's not the easiest thing to get alcohol as a minor, and I didn't have too much experience, especially not with liquor. So needless to say, I ended up drinking nearly half the whole damn bottle as we were sitting in the park, and I had my head laying down on his lap in the park, and it was literally, not to be disgusting, but right next to his dick, which like, this is already not good. Like, as an adult, as a 23-year-old adult presently, I do not want a minor's face anywhere near my junk. And as my head was still laying in his lap, he told me, I could tell you're just a good girl looking for your way in life. So right after that, we started making...
Oh, that's fucking... See, that's the part I believe. I believe Edward's a fucking weirdo. Because that video that he showed where she was like... So there was a video that he showed in his thing where he thought this was like a big nay-nay on her. And it was super uncomfortable to me. He showed when that after they broke up that they hung out again. Afterwards, she invited him to her apartment. And that's really normal, by the way. Just so you guys know. It's normal for people to break up and still hang out with each other for a little bit as like their de-escalation phase, decompression phase, whatever you want to call it. But he took a video of her sleeping and him like hugging her and then like kissing her and like rubbing his head against her. It was really intimate, but like in a super creepy, uncomfortable way, especially for people who broke up. So like, I do believe Edward's a fucking creepy asshole, you know?
Making out, and we walked back to his car. But as soon as I opened up the door and sat down, I blacked out. I completely blacked out. And when I woke up several hours later, all I smelled was just throw up, like the stench of vomit. And I was topless. I had a jacket over my shoulders, like covering my boobs. And I was really confused. I was like, what happened? And apparently I threw up all over my shirt and all over my pants. And so he had taken off my shirt to put the jacket on over it. And by the way, this is something that he would constantly bring up and be like, oh, well, you're so lucky I didn't do anything to you. Anybody else would have. Like, what kind of fucking shit is that? Like, oh, you deserve such a cookie for not molesting the minor that you have drunk in your car. But when
yeah, like it even gets into a conversation too, and I think it's important to talk about because, like, let's just say they're in some kind of relationship at this point. I just want you guys to know that just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean that like everything's always consensual. I'm 31 and I'm with my girlfriend, my fucking girlfriend, my wife. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? I'm with my wife, which I'm very happy about. And we have a very like we have a mature relationship, so we both know that if either one of us is like drunk or something, it's still consensual. You can have that type of conversation with your partner, where even if you can't consent, like it's still consensual. That's a conversation that that's something that takes being very close to somebody to do. However, young people in relationships, you don't have that dynamic. It's not the same thing in any capacity. You're not mature enough, and just because you're in a relationship with somebody doesn't mean that everything that you do is instantly consensual. So, like, if he did do something to her, that would have been sexual assault. Like, just understand that. Just understand that, like, just because you're married, or even in general married, but like just because you're with somebody, it doesn't mean that it's always consensual. You need to have a very established boundaries if you want to do something like that.
We'll go back.
Yeah, like the CNMA situation. That's one of those things. It's where like young people think that they're mature, and so they're like, "Oh, I'm mature. Like, oh, my partner's passed out. I can kiss him. I can touch their fucking dick. I can touch their pussy." No, not unless you have like very clear established boundaries in a mature relationship can you do that. And that's what happened with the CNMA situation. Is you have a young girl who again wants to be mature, doesn't understand that like you have to have boundaries, and then she sexually violated her then boyfriend because she was trying to emulate a mature relationship without actually being mature. And that's one of those big problems, and that's why we need to have these conversations about consent.
After having apparently had this...
The CNMA situation wasn't swept under the rug straight away. It was talked about for a while. I feel like a lot of people weren't really getting it correct. I think a lot of people called her like a sexual predator, which I think was it's not true. My take on it was what I just said, is that this was a young person that was in a relationship with somebody, and she was uneducated on proper consent, just like all of his friends were, because it happened in the whole room. Like, she got on top of him when he was like passed out drunk, and like kissed him and stuff, and nobody stopped her. And I'm not saying that like they're horrible people, but when you have a room full of people, when you have somebody who engages with somebody else in a non-consensual way, and then everybody in the room just like looks and doesn't stop it, you know you have a room full of people who don't truly understand boundaries, don't truly understand consent. And that's one of the biggest problems. And that's why I try to talk about these things in a way that brings awareness to proper consent.
explosive vomit happening, I honestly felt really rejuvenated, and I was like, I couldn't even figure out when I threw up or how, but he made it a point to let me know that he had been this close to dropping my unconscious body off in front of my apartment building, because apparently he had been shaking me violently, and I was not waking up. I was completely unresponsive. I remember I asked him if he could buy me
what a chivalrous guy. Not the hospital. Right in front of her apartment.
Like a pair of pajama pants or something, so that when I went into my house and like passed by my mom, that I wouldn't smell so much like throw up. Because honestly, my mom wouldn't really care. Like, she wouldn't care enough to ask too many questions, but it would just be annoying, and I didn't want to hear anything about it. He declined. He bought me a grilled cheese and Jack in the Box.
The fact that she wouldn't like care too much if her 17-year-old daughter came home like smelling like throw up. Let me tell you, I'm gonna be a very intrusive parent. Fuck you. I don't care if that upsets you.
And I read his tarot card.
Not very intrusive, but I'm not like, that's not gonna fly. Walk into my house. Oh, you smell like throw up. Oh, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll walk in there with a belt and say, what the fuck were you doing?
Before I got out of his car, and he got the death card. But as soon as I got into my apartment, we immediately began planning the next time that we would be hanging out. So was he deterred by me vomiting all over myself and him almost getting in trouble for buying alcohol for a minor? No, of course not. In fact, he began texting me, asking me if I thought that his dick was big or not.
Let's see. Fuck my life. Rip. Yeah. Keep watching that video. It makes me so sad too. I don't know. It's like somber. I've only had like 2 actual boyfriends. Like, I wasn't that super big yesterday, but every fucking girl I fuck can never take little Edward. Like, I always have to go half. I can't go full, and my ex would take it like a champ. But yeah, I have women tell me that. And then she laughs. Wow. This is incredibly inappropriate. Jesus Christ.
Because apparently, before I had completely blacked out, I had been touching his dick. Ew. So after this first chaotic interaction, I began sneaking out more and more to hang out with him. And one of the times, I was really scared to leave, and I was getting anxiety because it was around 1 a.m. and I hadn't told my mom anything about where I would be, and she was already asleep. So this meant that I would have to sneak out. And so I was taking forever, and basically he started accusing me of not actually being home and being with another guy. And he asked me to take a picture with a spoon to prove that I was at home right now and just scared to sneak out because of my mom. This would be a reoccurring theme in the entire relationship.
Wait, hold on.
Actually being home and have to sneak out. And so I was taking forever, and basically he started accusing me of not actually being home and being with another guy. And he asked me to take a picture with a spoon to prove that
I think she's trying to establish that he was possessive, which I would believe, like, based on what I've seen. Like, I wouldn't doubt it.
I was at home right now and just scared to sneak out because of my mom. This would be a reoccurring theme in the entire relationship. A major red flag. I also spent the night at his house multiple times while my mom had no idea where my whereabouts were. And I would later find out that during these times where I was sleeping over at his house and I had gotten drunk and passed out, he would leave me there sleeping in his bed and go out and cheat on me with his ex-girlfriend, who knew that I was 17, by the way. And not only knew that I was 17, was weirdly jealous of me and even tried to fight me one time at the Lakewood Mall. This girl had the audacity to message me today and act like she didn't do all that. Like, this was a grown woman that not only knew that her ex was dating a minor, but was also happily willing to have sex with him while he was dating a minor. Like,
dude, I mean, I'm not sure. This sounds like this whole we'll say universe, this whole like small, whatever you'd want to say, group. I don't know. There's a group of people who just like really ignorant on everything. Like this, I mean, this young girl is like a victim of circumstances. She seems to have a very poor family structure and people around her that want to take advantage of her. That sounds like that's pretty fucked up.
Make it make sense, sweetie. Like, go take care of your kids, because I worry about them with the way that you were treating me as a teenager. So the night before my mom...
So somebody said the problem with these relationships is that the older person knows how wrong it is to abuse a minor. This is the problem. No, they don't. Some of them do. This is one of the problems I think some of you guys don't understand, is that people think that this is okay. And I think that it goes over people's heads, understanding how that's like, people think this is normal. There's a lot of people who think that this is normal, that this is totally fine, that it doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. That's why these types of situations happen so often. Oftentimes, and just fundamentally in a lot of like sexual violation type scenarios, the person being violated is being violated by somebody who doesn't realize that they're violating them. And I think that this is probably the biggest aspect of like sexual assault culture, because it's all under that blanket that people really don't understand. I would encourage you to talk to some victims, because a lot of victims, a very, very, very common theme is that one of the reasons why it's so difficult for them to wrap their heads around their abuse is because they know that the person that was doing it wasn't trying to abuse them. So this is a very popular story, or rather, this is a very I guess popular story. I don't think that's the right word to use. Very common story from a lot of survivors is that they were in a situation. Usually, it's women in a situation with a man, and they felt like they couldn't say no or they would get hurt, but they never explicitly like said no because they were afraid, and they know that the person, or they thought afterwards like, oh well, they didn't really mean it. But that person like violated them without knowing. Like they put them in a situation where they felt too uncomfortable to say no, or they were being very pushy. Like, oh, come on. And to the guy there, it's like, oh, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. Be pushy. Do what honestly what media teaches you to do. Do you be a little more aggressive? Be pushy. And I'm not even trying to get like super fucking like woke here, but even with like pornography, that shows, in my opinion, shows like very, very, very inappropriate lines of like what people like of interactions. Like I know people will be like, oh, I'm not really anti-porn, but like when you have pornography that's very centralized around like women being like, no, don't do it, but then having it happen and then them actually liking it, it creates a whole fucking universe of problems. Yeah, like that's a very common thing to happen. Or consent to sex, but not consent to some things in sex. It's something that people aren't really educated on. Like we talked about the Dave Portnoy thing a while ago, and my read, and it's all speculative, but my read is that like they engaged consensually with Dave Portnoy, but they didn't realize how intense the intercourse is going to be. And so, but when you're in the moment, you don't want to say no because maybe you're afraid to get hurt or you don't want to disappoint the person. And does it mean that person sexually assaulted you? Not necessarily, but you were violated because there's so many complicated factors when it comes to, like, there's so much nuance when it comes to sexual engagement. And this is what fundamentally what I'm talking about is like, yeah, some people don't know. Their community isn't educated on this. We talked about like, there are people who think that like young age ranges are somehow appropriate. Just saying. Like we looked at the age of consent map. Like even in fucking Europe, 16-year-old was the age of consent. You know what I'm saying? Like what? Imagine that you have like your fucking whatever German or some shit little fucking dickhead come over and be like, yeah, this is fine. My 23-year-old dating a 16-year-old. Well, that's fine because in my country, 16 is the age of consent. You see how we have these problems and it's really normalized in society. And you notice how like adults don't care. Like the only people who really care about this shit are people who are in their 20s and younger. If you've noticed that, nobody that's like 30 plus and like 40, none of them actually care to have a legitimate nuanced conversation about the proper ages of consent. Like it happens all over the place. Like this is a very new conversation that people still aren't having. So
mom's last boxes of stuff that she was trying to take to Frisco, Texas, left on a U-Haul. Me and my ex attended a punk show together. And I'm sorry for not looking directly at the freaking screen, but I'm gonna just read you what I wrote right here. It's an important note that he wasn't actually very into this subculture or understanding of the
a lot of people blame it on young girls. Yep. That's another problem too, because here's the thing. And this is something that I especially learned from my fiance. Oh my God, we're married. I'm gonna get beat later. Young people in general they're growing and they're going through puberty and they have sexual urges and desires. That happens. And so and also like young girls, they do have these desires with older men, right? A lot of times what happens though is these young girls will go after older men, and then when they get older they're like, oh, I was violated, because they now understand that when they got older that was inappropriate and that they were taken advantage of. And so what happens is you'll have a lot of older men who are the ones that that's the responsible party who shouldn't be taking advantage of young girls, who will take advantage of young girls, and they'll be like, well, they wanted it. Right. And that's why I always say willingness does not equal consent. Just because a fucking 15-year-old girl willingly sleeps with you as a 25 doesn't mean it was consensual. Because and this is a problem, is that we don't really have that conversation. I feel like when you're young, you don't learn why a 15-year-old shouldn't talk to a 25-year-old. They're like, yeah, it's wrong. It's bad. It's inappropriate. Why? Does anybody remember specifically being told that the reason a 25-year-old and a 15-year-old shouldn't engage is because that 25-year-old is so much older, has like so many different desires, and that the idea of maturity to the 15-year-old means that this 25-year-old wants to date me, but for the 25-year-old it's just about a sexual conquest with a kid that's not going to understand it's dramatic. We don't even have these conversations in this deep way, how it's going to be it's going to be traumatizing. We just say it's bad. We don't explain why it's bad. Educate your 15-year-old on why, what's the problem with a 25-year-old who would even date you as a 15-year-old. Tell them that this is a person who's wildly immature. They're just looking to take advantage of you sexually. They don't care about you. They're just looking to abuse you in some capacity. Teach people about this. Teach people about this, because if you teach your young men and young, sons and daughters about this, it's usually the daughters that are more susceptible to the abuse, and it's usually the sons that are the ones that are providing the abuse, and sometimes they don't even know why. Teach them at a young age why these things are wrong, and you're going to see a lot less of these problems. I'm sorry for going off into a tangent.
Greater contents of it, i.e. love and acceptance, particularly the political ideology.
What age should you have those talks? I don't know, 10? Who fucking cares, 10, 12? Have them early. What are you going to do? You're not going to traumatize your kid. To have them early. Whenever you feel like they're ready. I would say like in their teens.
Of it, which I have always adhered to, meaning no discrimination, no fascism, no fucking bullshit. But we'll come back to just how much me and my ex differ on those subjects later. In my previous video, which was a Get Ready With Me, I stated that this was just a random guy that I attended the show with, but it was actually my ex. And I'm sorry if that turns you off that I'd said it was a random guy first, but I honestly didn't know if I ever wanted to share this story or share like the full story of my abuse or anything, so that's why I just said, oh, it was a random guy. I'm really done protecting my abuser though, and that's why I'm ready to just tell you that it was my ex, it wasn't a random guy. Hi, I'm sorry to disrupt the flow of the video. However, I am in a better mind space today and better able to explain to you what happened. So let's just continue from what I was saying, and I do have a whole thing typed out. Why? Because I would forget to say half of the things that I'm needing to say without having written anything down, so excuse me please. So in my Get Ready With Me, I also stated that I had to couch surf after this, after my friend abandoned me and our plans of living together. However, I'm sorry again, I didn't know that I would ever be sharing this at the time, and so that's just what I said. But what actually happened is that I ended up living with Edward at age 17 in his room with all of his family present in the house for 6 months. And just touching on that as well, I did get a voice message from his mom after stating that I was groomed by him, and she was like, that's a very serious statement to make. You can't just go around saying things like that.
Yeah, I agree. So this is like another problem. So right now, the framing I think that she's trying to give is that it was really inappropriate for her to be taken in by this family at 17, and you for sure. What's more inappropriate is that her mother and her father aren't the ones taking care of her. So when you're in this situation where like your son's girlfriend, and for like whatever reason in your social circle, this is an appropriate gauge gap to you, has nowhere to go. What do you think is shittier? Letting them live on the street or letting them live with you? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they were trying to do the right thing. I don't think it's like it's really fair to be like, oh, look at this shitty family for taking me in when my own mother didn't love me enough to take care of me. I'm not trying to be like super harsh, but again, this girl's like a victim of so many circumstances.
And like, girly, you knew I was 17. In fact, she knew I was 17 to the point at which when I initially moved in, she was pissed. Why would she be pissed? Because she knew I was an underage minor. Not just for more.
Because like his like 1 month girlfriend had to move in. It seemed like they were only dating for a few months, so that's probably why she was pissed.
Reasons, but for legal reasons, this was all bad.
Like I've had my like my exes like stay with me because they didn't have anywhere to go. My mom got pissed when I was still living with her. You know what I mean? It's shitty, but
so basically, during these 6 months of living in room, I would spend all day filling out job applications so that I could move out and move in with my sister into her apartment and just make my way in life somehow, because all of this was overwhelming and happening at once. And basically Edward would go out every night and work for Uber.
Censoring Edward.
And make enough to feed both of us Taco Bell every night and get totally blasted with alcohol every night as well. And this also led me to slowly become an alcoholic. Like, I slipped into alcoholism with this man so deeply that the way that I feel now about having a cup of coffee every day was once how I felt about drinking and having a beer. And not only one beer, but an excessive amount of beers. Like, I needed it or I was pissed the whole entire day. And this is just insane to me now, like coming from where I stand. So my ex also constantly justified treating me as if I were an object up until our breakup because he had once provided for me this way. And what I mean by provided for, I mean let me sleep in his room and gave me food and stuff like toothpaste.
I need an example of what he said.
Like, this is the stuff that he held against me and dangled over my head. Every time I brought up to him that he was mistreating me, he would say something along the lines of, well, you're lucky that I did anything for you at all. You're lucky that I've done so much for you in life that I don't think anyone else has done this much for you ever and ever will do again. I am the one who has cared for you more than anyone else in your life, and you should appreciate me and basically shut up. But honestly,
it's very interesting because like that absolutely is like a huge problem, you know, and this is one of the problems when somebody does something for you and then they hold it over your head forever. It's no longer an act of kindness. It's blackmail. It's so interesting is that like when I was in a relationship, one of my past relationships, and I would generally do a lot for my partners. Like I like doing a lot of nice things. Like I could call my wife in right now. I do constant things for her because I love her a lot, and I like to do nice things and make her happy. That's what it's not. And she does a tremendous. She's the only woman I've ever been with in my entire life that's ever reciprocated equally. We just show it differently. Like I'll go out and I'll get her like nice flowers, or like maybe I'll like, I'll do stuff like that. Nice flowers. I'll buy her something that she's always wanted. Maybe I'll show up somewhere like work with food, or I'll get her a coffee. Or like yesterday we went to the mall and it was Black Friday, so it was busy. So I took a piss and she had to piss. So I went and I got her a Cinnabon while she was peeing, because women's lines are long because women don't know how to take a fucking piss in public. But she'll like reciprocate. Like she'll like wake me up with like fucking like with breakfast. She'll make me get like the coffee or tea like randomly. She'll like do really nice things for me. I've been in relationships where like me doing nice things, it's a fine line between saying like, hey, listen, I do a lot for you. Can you please reciprocate? And saying like, I do things for you, so you can't complain. Those are two very different conversations. I've been in the part where like I was like, hey, listen, like I'm the only one working. I'm the one like paying for everything, getting all the food, going shopping, doing this, that, the other thing. Can you please just do something can you please like clean the room so we don't have to live in a pigsty? And then the gaslighting ensues. Oh, well, you just holding everything over me, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, man, I just want you to like cook and go shopping with my money that I work for when you're unemployed. And it's like, you know what I mean? So I've been on both sides of the story. It sounds like she's in the side where he just like holds shit over her head.
Honestly, the last time I checked, giving things to somebody that they're absolutely desperate for and then using that against them to get them to do things that they don't want to do is manipulation. And when I finally was able to move in with my sister 6 months later, that's when the possessiveness truly kicked into high gear. It was full-fledged hysteria. I constantly had to prove where I was to him, and even if I replied to one of his text messages, not even 2 minutes later, if I replied just a little bit too late for him, he would start accusing me of cheating on him or not being where I said I was.
What's so interesting is like I tend to believe that, because I know all of this is like he said, she said, but she was talking about how he cheated on her before, like a lot, or at least when she would get drunk and she was young. And it's one of those things where you're generally projecting, like when you're like, what are they doing? Like there are times where it's like, what are they doing? Like I'm actually genuinely concerned, but it's also possible that the person is projecting. It's like, oh, well, you're not talking to me for a period of time. Well, if I wasn't talking to you for a period of time, I would be cheating on you. So you must be cheating on me, kind of a thing. Like that's what this kind of reads as to me.
It got to the point where I barely made any sort of attempt at all to have friends or do anything with friends because it just wasn't worth the stress of it all. And something that he would blame this on later when I brought it up to him was that he was cheated on, so that's why he treated me like that. Well, dude, and besides this, every time that I actually just stayed inside instead of going out or trying to live or trying to hang out with friends, he would call me such a good girl. And that was the validation that I truly craved and truly wanted. And I felt it for just that instant, and it was enough to keep me around. And not only keep me around, but keep me fully obsessed with the idea of trying to get this man to love me, when truly he cannot love anyone. But even when I did stay inside, that was never enough for him. It was never enough to just be inside and not do anything. He would still accuse me of cheating on him. Like, if I got up at work at 8 a.m. to go to Albertsons, I worked all day, and then I skateboarded home for an hour to come home, and I was tired, I could not go to sleep because every night this man would be awake until like 4 in the morning, and if I dared go to sleep before him, boom, I'm a cheater. Like, boom, I'm accused of cheating. And it was as if he controlled everything, even my sleep, even my time here on earth, just completely distorted and manipulated by this man. It was insane, and it's totally the reason why I have eye bags today, because every night, I shit you not, no matter what time I had to go to work tomorrow, no matter what I had to do, no matter what time I got up, I will wait for him to go to sleep so that he will be satisfied and not call me a whore, basically. When I was 19, I fell even more in love with skateboarding. Skateboarding had always been like a little hobby of mine that I enjoyed, but I had never successfully like achieved doing some tricks before. And unfortunately, me actually doing some of these tricks is some of like the only proud moments I've felt in my life. Like doing an ollie, doing a shove it, ollieing off of something.
This is fucking crazy, man. I know what it's like to not have like like a father or validation. So I'm like, damn, bro, I did this thing. Somebody please, that's self gratification. That's fucked up. But it's like, damn, skateboarding.
Going into a bowl.
That's how I feel about my League of Legends Gold 4.
Like these are some of the few times I've ever felt proud of myself. But made it very hard for me to skate because he never liked me going anywhere where men might be. If men even might be there, I had no business being there because I might cheat, and he knew how guys are. Around the same time, I started to really feel this crushing sensation around me and felt like I couldn't breathe, and there was like nothing that I could do to like satisfy this guy. I felt every aspect of my life being controlled and curated, and that's a feeling that I only just stopped knowing recently when I finally left him for good. He also destroyed my self-esteem by making offhanded comments about my body that I realized at the age age of 19 was still developing. You are still a teenager when you're 19. You're not done growing. You're not a woman or a man or a full-grown they, them yet. You're just a kid still, honestly. And you're not going to realize this until you're in your 20s.
What comments was he making? I'm wondering.
Okay, you're not going to, but 19, you are still very naive. If you're 19 right now, please, for the love of God, do not listen to anyone's bullshit. Do not listen to anyone's bullshit and just enjoy it. Please enjoy it. Enjoy being young. Do not let somebody who's supposed to be your significant other ruin that for you, because you will regret it. You are a perfectly beautiful young person who deserves respect. Now, please demand that respect.
Yeah, my doctor would tell me I was fat when I was young. I was like, damn, bro, I'm just a grown boy. Oh, just because I'm 400 pounds doesn't mean I'm fat, bro. I'm just kidding. I wonder what he said to her, though. That's more like I need to hear like the claim plus what he said.
I'm begging you. I do not want to see anybody who follows me, anybody who sees this. I do not want this happening to you. And if something like this is happening to you, my DMs are open for me to talk to you. Although I'm going to be listing professional resources for you to look at as well, because I'm only one person, but I will try to answer any kind of DMs pertaining to these subjects. The other self-esteem destroying things that he did to me.
It's one of those things that like I feel bad, but people sometimes reach out to topic that I need advice. I'm having like a really tough time, and I want to respond to people that say that shit, but like I don't. Because I feel like it's inappropriate. I'm 31 years old, and I don't want to guide you the wrong way. I'm not a professional like mental health advocate or not advocate, not a professional like mental health expert. So I feel like it'd be irresponsible if I did do something like that.
Included not holding my hand, not touching me, hugging me, kissing me, or anything like that outside of being in bed together. And usually if we were in bed cuddling or doing anything, this was because he had the intention of having sex with me. So basically, this reiterated to me that I was only good for having sex, that my body was to be judged by older men, and that I was not meant to be loved, to be hugged, to be touched and caressed, and like to have a normal relationship, that I was just here to be, to put it crassly, fucked, which is so fucking disgusting. And all this would go on while he would reiterate to me so many times all these things about his ex-girlfriend that he cheated on me with, the one that's an adult, the one that mocked me as I was a teenager. He would talk about her so often that I not only knew her birthday, I not only knew how she had sex or how she shaved her vagina, like I knew everything about this girl because of how obsessed he was with talking about her to me. And
yeah, see, that's another red flag. So just so you guys know that a person who talks about their ex too much, red flag, but also people who don't talk about their exes enough are also a red flag. Like you should be able to have a healthy conversation about your exes in like a reasonable way, right? So like if somebody asks you like, oh, how many people did you, oh, I've dated like 3 other people, for instance. I mean, not me, I'm a fucking baller, what I'm saying? I did like 10,000 people, but so you're like, yeah, I dated like 3 other people. Oh, okay. Like what happened? Like, oh, this person was nice. Maybe like, like conversation around it. Maybe like where you felt like you failed in the relationship and why you felt the relationship failed in general. Those are healthy things to talk about. But like, obviously you shouldn't know your ex or your partner's ex's sexual habits are fucking weird. You know what I mean? And if they start doing like comparatives, if they're like, "Oh man, I really liked it when my ex would eat me out like this," like that's a red flag as well. There's a way to communicate that you could change and be more compatible sexually without having to talk about your ex in a sexual capacity, because that's going to become like a huge point of frustration for the person that you're expressing it. Like when you compare like that, you're like, "Oh, my ex was so much better at this." Why? Why do they need to know that? Like, just get more sexual. You can get. You can grow together sexually. You can grow and be like, oh, you don't have to say my ex did this like this. You could just say, hey, I like it like this. You understand?
Making me insecure about my body and myself just for shits and giggles. Something that he did, not once, not twice, not 3 times, was go on his phone and ask, hey Siri, who's my girlfriend? And Siri every time would answer blank, the girl's name. And each time he did it to make me feel lower and lower. It felt like a never-ending competition with myself to be the better girl, to be the better girlfriend. How can I be better? How can I be as good as this girl? That's how it felt. So it was this same year that I was 19 that I rebelled against him a bit. I finally rebelled. I went to a Halloween party without telling him. I went with like my girl skateboarder friends. It was very, very innocent, but it was like a skate party and there was a ramp and everything. And because there were skaters there was somebody who knew Edward and DM'd him and like tattled on me and was basically like, oh, your girlfriend's here. Why aren't you here? And that's still, okay, I'm sorry. It still gets me pissed off to this day that I finally got the courage to disobey him and somebody ratted me out. Like, come on, man. Needless to say, I got in big trouble with him over this. When he found out, he called me a dog and a bitch and accused me of cheating on him, of course. Although the very next night, he still drove out to see me in his car so that we could have sex together in his car. And during sex with him this time, he randomly knelt down to my vagina and sniffed it. And he started saying, your pussy smells like condom. And I felt so confused and so grossed out and like violated by this. I scooted away from him and I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, your pussy smells like condom. I know you cheated on me. It smells like condom. And he of course started calling me a bitch, a dog, a whore, all of this stuff. And I just couldn't even deal with it.
You know what's interesting is that like it's possible she did actually cheat on him and that she's lying to us, but it's also possible that she didn't cheat on him and he was looking for an excuse to cheat on her. And like that's something I don't think people talk about, because like that's could potentially be him just gaslighting. Oh, you cheated on me, and then now he's like, oh well, I can go cheat on you now. It's okay if I go and do that because you cheated on me. You know, she doesn't have to cheat on him at this point. He just has to set the framework where he feels like she cheated, and even though she didn't cheat, it's her fault for going into a scenario that he feels like she would cheat in so that he could justify his cheating on her. That's honestly very possible.
Got out of the car and just started screaming. It was because of situations like this that I literally started doubting my own reality. I started questioning myself. I was like, did I cheat on him? Even knowing that I had not cheated on him, I questioned myself, did I? Like, what have I done wrong? Like, it seriously felt like reality based on how much anger and force he was putting behind his words. These are some things that make me feel compellingly bad for my younger self. Like, I feel so bad for her because she was so beautiful and so naive and just so easily taken advantage of and humiliated. And I would do anything to help my younger self. I would do anything to change that because of how much pain it is. It's so painful to see older pictures of me, honestly, because of everything that I was going through. I don't even see myself as that person anymore. It's so depersonalizing, and I don't even know. I felt like I've not known who I am for a while, and this is something that I discussed with my therapist. I feel like I'm figuring it out, and he has tried to assure me that I am the same person, that I am still my younger self, you know, but with trauma and baggage. So it's just something for you to think about if you have been through something like this, is that you still are yourself, and you always will be, and nobody can take that away from you. When we started a YouTube channel together, he began pressuring me into taking very provocative thumbnails that I wasn't comfortable with, and I told him that I wasn't comfortable with this, and each time I would try to tell him, he would say something along the lines of, you're so lucky you're a girl. If I was a girl, I would sell my body. You're so lucky that you have this option. One of these videos that I just want to mention really quick that has been privated, but I know there's some people out there that may remember it or recall having seen it, was called Hot Girl Plays Claw Machine in Bra, in which I lose a challenge at a claw machine, and because of that am then forced to take my dress partway off and show my bra. And in the video, I feel that you could see that I was quite uncomfortable. There was a thumbnail of me in my bra, and I don't know, it just makes me sad. It got to—
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it. It's one of those things where I remember watching something, I think about Basherverse or something, where they would use his then girlfriend, like her body as a way to, you know, get clicks and views, and like overly sexualizing YouTube was like a huge deal. People used to do it all the time. It's pretty fucked.
To the point where I would be bent over at claw machines and stuff like this in public, and he would say more, bend over more and more provocatively, show more boobs, show this, show that. And it would literally get to the point where I would cry. Like, there have been times where I have cried taking a provocative thumbnail, and when that happened, he would get mad and just say, you always make me out to be the bad guy. We're still talking about age 19. It was when all this was going on with the provocative thumbnails and stuff, I began venting to a guy on Instagram about this.
Sus. Sorry.
And it started off as a friendship. I was not allowed to have friendships with males, of course, so this was a secret. And
hey, listen, I'm just gonna let you know right now, my wife's not allowed to have friendships with males either, except for all the men that she's friends with at work. But outside of that, and her best friend that's gay, outside of that, no, like, you know. No, I understand why people were generally uncomfortable with people having friends that are of the opposite sex. Within, like, reason. Like, my wife has fucking male friends at work. Like, I don't care. I know she's not gonna, like, cheat on me or anything, you know. Now, but my thing is like, if it was just some random guy that's not from something, I wouldn't let her be a friend. Like, if she's like, oh, I met this guy at the grocery store, I say, bitch, shut the fuck up. Who the fuck do you think you are? You know what I mean? Same thing with me. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I have, like, female, I have female, like, associates, I guess, content creators, but, like, you know, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, it sounded like she was reaching out emotionally to another person now.
And
I don't blame her.
It started off as a friendship. I was not allowed to have friendships with males. Make me out to be the bad guy. We're still talking about age 19. It was when all this was going on with the provocative thumbnails and stuff, I began venting to a guy on Instagram about this, and it started off as a friendship. I was not allowed to have—
I mean, like, so, like, if you remove the blanket, like, it sounds like she was trying to reach out emotionally and, like, trying to figure, like, you know, try to possibly move on almost. But if she met somebody on Instagram, like, it was probably for some kind of intimacy, whether probably not sexual, but probably like emotional intimacy that she was lacking. A lot of times people who are in relationships will try to look to another person before they leave the relationship as like a safe, you know, harboring a safe thing. You know what I mean? Some people are like relationship jumpers. Not right, but you know, it's the way of life.
friendships with males, of course, so this was a secret, and it eventually developed into me having a crush on him. So after a few weeks of talking, I decided to tell Edward that I was interested in somebody else and that I think we should break up because of that. And when I told him this, I remember we were outside of a skate park and he began banging the steering wheel with his hands and telling me he couldn't believe this because he'd done so much for me. He had done so much for me, he couldn't understand how I could be interested in somebody else and that it was so cruel and so heartless. He also began love bombing the crap out of me and started confessing to me how much he loved me and how much he had taken me for granted and how he's so sorry, he should have been a better boyfriend. So instead of breaking up, we ended up having sex. And not to be so graphic and crass, but during the previous 2 years of our relationship, every time that we had sex, there was no mistakes being made. He every single time pulled out without mistake in order to not get me pregnant, of course. It was just the procedure. There was never any close calls, no mistake whatsoever. This time, he came inside me intentionally. And I think he did this because I was breaking up with him. And he knew that he needed to do something to get me to stay. And as soon as that happened, I felt so disgusted and violated and hopeless. I immediately told him, why did you do that? And I started panicking. And his explanation for this was that he wanted to show me how much he loved me. That he loved me so much that he didn't even care if he got me pregnant. I perfectly vocalized that I was disgusted by this. And the next day, I went to Planned Parenthood because I didn't know what to do. I wasn't on birth control. I wasn't on anything. And so I asked them what I should do, and they told me that I was in a weird spot in my cycle, so they thought the morning after pill most likely would not work for me, and that I should get an IUD for perfect measure, And I didn't even know what an IUD was prior to this. And basically what it is like a little T thing, and they take a speculum and they put it all the way up in your vagina, and it prevents pregnancy with a 99.9% rate, okay? But I said yes to this, and it was one of the most painful experiences of my life, both emotionally and physically, because...
So, there's a lot going on here, and I'm trying to listen because I'm trying to, figure out how I feel about this. So basically, she wanted out of the relationship, so she found another guy, and she tried to break up, and then they ended up, having sex. Okay, she was like, hey, or apparently he was like, hey, I'm so sorry, I fucked up this way. From the way that she's explaining it, it sounds like she, to an extent, accepted his apology and continued the relationship and engaged consensually in the sex. The coming inside of her part doesn't seem to be consensual. However, she never made a mention that when they had sex that she felt like she was threatened in any capacity. And this is a very important thing because what she's saying, pulling out doesn't stop pregnancy. Well, it does, for the most part. Yes. Who's teaching you guys that? You should always wear a condom, but pulling out will have a very heavy level of prevention in sex. Anyway. Anyway, it seems like the sex was consensual and she accepted it. The manipulation part seems to be the finishing inside of her to try to potentially create a baby to force her to stay with him, but I wanted to make sure that we talk because it doesn't seem like he took it sexually, went out with prenup. I just want you guys to know something. Pre-cum is never going to get someone pregnant. I'm just first of all, always use a condom, not just for pregnancy, but also STDs. But also, pre-cum doesn't get people pregnant. Do you know how hard it is to get pregnant? I feel like I can happen, but it's probably not going to happen. It's very difficult. Half of your sperm die instantly just because of the fucking pH imbalance inside of a woman's vagina. I just want you guys to know. All right. Pre-cum doesn't get pregnant. Doesn't have a 78% success rate. What the fuck are you talking? I'm moving on. Wear a condom. But Jesus Christ.
First of all, it's fucking painful physically, and secondly, I was having to do this against my own will, basically.
And then again, okay, so then with the IUD, it sounds like the people at Planned Parenthood led her in the wrong direction. It sounds like she could have just taken Plan B. I don't know what they're talking about, their fucking cycle and some weird shit. It sounds like but the IUD part, that's not Edward's fault per se. That's poor advice from Planned Parenthood. You know what I mean? But it sounds like all together, this was a very traumatic experience for her.
First of all, it's fucking painful physically, and secondly, I was having to do this against...
Yeah, I don't know why an IUD would work after the fact.
My own will, basically, because I didn't want to get pregnant, and I didn't ask for somebody to try and impregnate me, and that's the only reason why I did it. So, on my way out of this Planned Parenthood, it was my ex who showed up with roses, and I asked him, what are you doing here? Honestly, what are you doing here? And he acted very insulted by that. And I just
Okay, so apparently, in fact, some research has concluded. Some research, just keep that. Yeah, so apparently it's not very effective if you're on your day of ovulation. So maybe they didn't mislead her. Okay. You learn something new every day. So I know that there are Plan B pills that don't just stop ovulation. So here's the problem I'm having with this, because I'm pretty sure there's different types of Plan B. Plan B doesn't just stop you from ovulating. It also, I think, it like thins your uterine lining or something, and makes it so that the egg won't stick to the wall. Or maybe that's the abortion pill. Maybe I don't know what. Like, I'm not super educated on it, I guess. Anyway, let's keep going.
can't express to you what are you doing here? And he acted
Is
very
that like a difference? Because the Plan B isn't an abortion pill, right? Maybe that's like an abortion pill.
insulted by that. And I just can't express to you enough how not okay I was with this. And I wish to God that I could cry. I can't. I haven't cried in several months. I can't get it out. I wish that I could cry. I can't. For anyone
Hold on.
what are you doing here? And I asked him, what are you doing? Planned Parenthood. It was my ex who me, and that's the only reason why I did it. So on my way out of this Planned Parenthood, it was my ex who showed up with roses, and I asked him, what are you doing here? Honestly, what are you doing?
Here's the thing, because it sounds like they're still together. It's very up in the air here so far.
And he acted very insulted by that. And I just can't express to you enough how not okay I was with this. And I wish to God that I could cry. I can't. I haven't cried in several months. I can't get it out. I wish.
It sounds like she was really pissed at him, but at this point they were still together, and because they obviously stayed together till like recently, right? And at this point she's only 19 or 20.
That I could cry. I can't. For anyone unaware, stealthing somebody is a form of sexual assault. It's not.
Well, first of all, I agree, but second of all, this isn't technically stealthing. It's almost irrelevant, because if you have made the verbal contract of I'm gonna pull out, and both parties consent to that being the norm, ejaculating in somebody would still, in my opinion, be some form of maybe sexual violation, sexual assault. I don't know the exact term. Definitely, absolutely disgusting and wrong. But stealthing is removing a condom. And she had established that they usually pull out. So, like, just from the semantical perspective, he didn't stealth her, at least not in the traditional definition, but he still did ejaculate in her without her consent. So, like, yes, that's, just being,
Not okay to do that without the person's permission. It's violating their autonomy and their choice to decide if they want to be pregnant or not. So my advice to you, if anybody has done this to you and you're in a relationship with them or you're not in a relationship with them, please get help or leave that person, because it's a violation. I seriously felt that I needed to escape. And the next night was New Year's Eve. So what I did was I sent him a breakup text, basically, and I told him I can't do this anymore, and I blocked him on all social media. I blocked his phone number, and the guy that I had a crush on and vented all of my abusive issues to was there for me and saying, come over here, I'll treat you right, I promise. I blocked him on all social media. What I did was violation. I seriously felt that I needed to escape. And the next night was New Year's Eve. So what I did was I sent him a breakup text, basically, and I told him I can't do this anymore. And I blocked him on all social media. I blocked his phone number. And the guy that I had a crush on and vented all of my abusive issues to was there for me and saying, come over here, I'll treat you right, I promise. I would never do any of that to you. And so I went to his house that night. Me and
that's already a red flag to me from that guy.
Broken up after this for 2 weeks at most, during which he would frequently hook up with the ex that was okay with me being underage. This is just me reiterating that the adults around me and him have known about this and didn't care. And basically, what
your mother is one of those adults, just letting you know.
Happened with me and the boy that I had a crush on was that basically, after he got what he wanted from me, he began gaslighting me and making me feel like I was crazy for wanting to date him, and was literally hiding me from his ex-girlfriend, which I'm pretty sure now was literally just his girlfriend, and that he cheated on her with me.
Okay, so she's talking about the other guy that she was, like, leaning on emotionally.
So I realized that I was used, and I felt even more hopeless because all of this had just happened to me, and then again, I was used by another man. And I started realizing that all I wanted was just to prove that I was good enough. I just wanted to prove I was good enough to be loved by this man who had picked me up at the age of 17 and had never made me feel like a human being. I just wanted him to make me feel like a human being because there were times where we would have fun together and stuff, and it would be all good, and then he would snatch it away. And this is just, it's abuse. It's abuse to play the push-pull with somebody so that they are essentially your perfect grooming victim. So many people have asked me, if he groomed you, why did you stay with him? Please understand what grooming is before you come to me with a question like that.
Again, I don't really think that this constitutes as grooming. I think that this person is definitely very manipulative. I'll say that. I don't think it would be like grooming per se. Like, it sounds like there's definitely like a pretty like a abuse and manipulation here, but you wouldn't really consider this grooming. You'd consider this an abusive type of a relationship. What's up, baby? Well, just come walk it to me. I love you. Sorry, I've left my wedding band downstairs. I asked my wife to bring it up to me.
Please do. Grooming is a process that you cannot leave. You do not understand it enough to leave while you are in it. I explained that I had been used by another boy on New Year's Eve to my ex, and it was at that point that he told me, listen, all men use women. And he tried to warn me about that fact. He tried to get me to stay with him because he was the only one who wouldn't disrespect me like that. Oh, the irony. He also told me that there was really no point of me exploring the world outside of our relationship as a single person because he had done everything that single people have done. He has done all the parties and gone everywhere, and he knows that it's really not all that fun. And he would say, trust me, watch, when you're single, you're gonna find out that nothing really is that fun or cool, and then you're gonna feel so sad and come running back to me. And he was one of 2 adults in my life that gave me any guidance.
I mean, that by itself isn't like the worst. Like, being single's overrated. Like, I mean, some of these things aren't horrible.
The other one was my sister, and I hid all of this from her, basically because I didn't want her to worry about me. So I was listening to my ex. I was listening to his guidance. I thought to myself, well, he's older, he is more experienced, so he must be right? He then invited me on a spontaneous trip to Vegas. And I was, at the time, feeling hopeless, disgusted with myself, blaming myself for all the abuse that happened to me, feeling like crap from being used. I felt like I wasn't going anywhere in life at all, and this seemed like the best option for me. So I agreed to go on this spontaneous trip with him to Las Vegas. By his standards, what he told me was just to see what would happen. But honestly, it was just another case of love bombing. During this trip, all he would do was just love bomb me, or we would be violently arguing, like screaming at each other, literally screaming at each other on the freaking strip. I also agreed to go on this trip because I had slim to no friends left. Most of my friends abandoned me because they grew tired of me talking about my toxic relationship. They grew tired of me being so vulnerable and constantly being kicked around and worrying about me. They didn't want to have to worry about me anymore. Which I can see it from their perspective, but honestly, my advice to everybody who has a friend out there that's getting abused or that's getting groomed, do not stop talking to them.
Well, for one, I don't think you were groomed, but yeah, man, like, listen, this is another conversation we have to have. Your abuse is not your friend's problem. I don't mean to be a dick. What it sounds like, though, man, is that like she was constantly complaining about this relationship that was bad, and her friend's like, you got to get out of there, and then she wouldn't listen. There's a lot so far of like, he was bad, he was shitty, he was manipulative. I totally believe that. There's no part here, though, where he seems to have forced her to stay with her or threatened some kind of violence if they didn't stay together. And I'm not saying he's not a manipulative dickhead piece of shit or even abusive. But what I am saying, though, is that it seemed like there was an out, and then she's like, well, he was an older guy, I trusted him. That is your very poor judgment, but it also is because you didn't have a good family that really supported you. Maybe your sister, but like your mother and your father don't seem to care. And that's really sad. But oftentimes, the people that are the most susceptible to abuse are people that don't have strong family units or strong like support or robust support systems. If he specifically targeted her because she didn't have a robust support system, that's incredibly predatory. If it was just kind of a stumble upon, like, oh, I like this girl, and he still seems shitty, then it's really like, again, she's a victim of the circumstance. It doesn't seem... He seems like a shithead, but it doesn't seem like bad faith, right? Their family tried to take her in at one point. I'm not saying that she doesn't have any like grounds for any type of, I don't know, even maybe trauma. It's something that she would need to talk to her therapist about. I just think that this isn't a scenario of like an active like predator going around trying to fuck with her. This seems like a really toxic person, her ex, Edward. that's really shitty in relationships.
Do not stop talking to them, because the minute you stop talking to them, the more reason there is for them to be in that relationship.
But like, again, like if you're a friend, you're like, hey, you got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. How much do your friends have to worry about you before like they have to give up? Because if ultimately some of this sounds like you just wouldn't step away either. And like maybe that is because he would convince you to go back with him. But unless he convinced you with the threat of violence, like you have to make that decision yourself, and it's a hard decision. I understand it totally. And she wasn't able to make that, and I totally get why she wasn't able to make that difficult decision. But like for your friend's perspective, we can't just expect them to be like, yeah, like, you know what, you want to be like you want to be fucking taken advantage of by your boy, you know what, I'm here for you. Like, no, man. They're like, you have to get away, and if you're not, I can't keep worrying about you. And I get it, man. I totally get that.
The more they feel alone and the more isolated they feel, the more hopeless it all is, the more likely they're going to stay in that relationship for more and more years. They're going to stay in that.
Because we would say, like, remember we were talking about grooming? One of the aspects of grooming is driving a wedge between other relationships. Now, he seems to have a problem with her, like, going out, of course, but he didn't have a problem with her relationship with her sister or her mother, most likely, or her other female friends. Her female friends left because she wouldn't leave him. That's not him doing that directly, saying you can't have those friends. Or a lot of times what they'll do is like, those people don't really like you. They talk about you behind your back. I have evidence. You know what I'm saying? Again, victim of circumstances. Your system gave up on you because you gave up on yourself, and it's really sad and fucked up, but it's kind of the reality, man.
That relationship, maybe even forever. And if you don't want that for them, then please don't abandon all hope. Do not abandon your friends who are going through this stuff.
Like, what is your friend supposed to do? Like, take a gun and say break up with them? You know what I'm saying, man? Ultimately you have your own agency, and you have to make your own decisions. You got to make the right ones.
When we came back from Las Vegas, we continued the YouTube channel, and from there on out, we accumulated a lot of adult viewers who were there for the sexualized thumbnails of me, and we would live stream, and these older men, a lot of them at least, would also sexualize me to my face. This was just another thing that reiterated to me who I was as a young person, which at the time...
I wonder what that means. I think she's 19 at this point. Maybe.
I thought it was just somebody who was there to look good enough to entice men. We never did anything for this YouTube channel that I planned or desired to do. And this same behavior translated outside of just our working together as well. Our relationship was not based on anything that I wanted to do or planned to do or wanted to show him. All of my interests were stupid to him. All of my interests were mocked by him. He never wanted me to show him any movies, songs, like videos, anything, you name it, because that's how invalid my opinion was. And this may seem like not a big deal, but it so is. It's such a weird form of control and minimizing the person that you're with. And
is what she's claiming, like he wouldn't take her content suggestions seriously? Is that what she's saying?
Treating them like your interests are the only ones that are valid and what you want to do are the only things that are worth doing. It's just so toxic. I had completely given up on sharing any of my interests with him.
I understand that, like somebody not taking you seriously and like not respecting you. I get that. I totally get it. I'm just trying to curious. Maybe I'm just confused about what her point is.
For fear of humiliation, really. Everything that we did together was curated off of his interests and only the things that he wanted me to see. I would work at Target daily while he would be off live streaming for this YouTube channel, the arcade one, and we began making enough decent money on these videos and streams to the point where I could have quit my job, but he told me that I couldn't because he wanted to teach me a lesson and teach me the meaning of real work. Day 3 of trying to finish filming this. This is the most put together.
It's interesting. You know what's interesting is like, fuck. So I understand the idea of like making money. Like I've told my wife, is like, listen, if you want to quit your job, like we might be able to handle it. You know what I mean? We've talked about it because like I'm doing well here. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with being like, hey, you should stay working because she'll be able to get us health insurance because she has a decent job for health insurance purposes. There is an issue with saying like you have to quit your job and like forcing them to generate a dependence. One of the aspects of like a manipulation I would say is like, I mean, forcing her to take the job sounds shitty. Also forcing her to quit the job so that she would have to rely on him. I'm actually kind of curious. Based on what I've heard about him so far, he seems like the kind of guy who, if they were making enough money, would say you need to quit your job as another form of her only having a dependency onto him. So I'm curious as to why that's not happening. Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily anything wrong with him encouraging her to keep a job for sure. Yeah, like they might have just started taking off. I don't really know the specifics. I gotta go to the bathroom really quick. Let me run a quick ad. I just gotta pee. Taco Bell. Sorry, guys. I had, Jesus fuck, man. Holy fuck. Bro, I just had Taco Bell squirts. I had to take a piss, and then I had a shit, and then the shit was more liquidy than my piss. Go figure, huh? Sorry. Just like, let me just listen to some of these alerts real quick, and we're gonna get back into the video. Sorry, guys. Holy fuck, dude. I was like water spewing out of my asshole. Thank you so much for the sub, my man. Do I have picture proof? You know what, dude? I totally forgot to show you. I'm really sorry that I failed you as a content creator. Hey, ladies, poop your pants. Dude, I fucking poop my pants, bro. Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you so much for the sub again. Where are we at? Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs before, by the way. Okay. I'm glad you chose to have dinner now, right? Thank you so much for the subs, guys. Thank you so much in Magnum. 9 month sub. Damn, brother. Yeah, EDP would have taken a picture. True. All right, let's get back into this.
I've been out of all these days, I guess because I've spent the least amount of time on social media within this 24-hour time frame, so I am feeling very normal. And let's just say after I post this video, I am gonna go AWOL for several days. I'm gonna delete all my social media apps, so I'm sorry if you can't contact me for those few days, but I'm just trying to keep myself from spiraling. Which honestly, every time I film part of this video, I do spiral a bit, and that's why I've had to kind of split it up amongst several days. So where
Amongst Us. Sorry. I gotta stop with the Among Us jokes, but like they do Among Us content, so not anymore. Sorry.
Was I? He kept having me do these hypersexualized thumbnails on both YouTube and Instagram, which it's kind of really funny that he treated me like that's why I've had to kind of split it up amongst several days. So where was I? He kept having me do these hypersexualized thumbnails on both YouTube and Instagram, which it's kind of really funny that he treated me like scum and like I wasn't shit, when at the same time, he was using me for these clickbaited views. And another thing that I've really observed is that he had bullied me into honestly downplaying my own personal style, like taking it down a few notches. And
Sorry, I just want to look for these thumbnails.
Bullied me into honestly downplaying my own personal style, like taking it down a few notches. And I'll show you some pictures as an example, because just how much he put it into my mind that all of my interests and what I did and how I did it was total crap. The irony that now a lot of people
So like I'm looking through these thumbnails here, and like listen, I'm not trying to like invalidate her experience, but what I also know is that like when it comes to breakups, they're always super messy. I do believe that he was shitty to her. I'm not denying that. But what I also believe is that we're getting her side of the story. Where if we got his side of the story, it would be just as shitty. We got his side of the story, and I shit on it. I'm more empathetic to her. But so she was talking about sexualized thumbnails, right? If we look through these thumbnails here on her and I'm not saying they don't exist, but what I'm saying is like this is her, not sexualized, not sexualized. These are her, right? So these are non-sexualized thumbnails with her in them. If you see them, like her right there. Then we have her right here. We scroll down with her here. So when we look through these thumbnails, what we see is that we have a series of thumbnails with her non-sexualized, and she was talking about sexualized thumbnails, which to me suggests that he stopped doing sexualized thumbnails. Now, it's possible that he didn't like it. Is this when they broke up? I guess so. Is this broke up?
What's up, you guys? Me and Nicole would have never thought in a million years we will be making this video right now. If you read the title right now, it's true. YouTube is deleting all 3 a.m. channels on YouTube.
Okay, never mind. Hate this fucking channel. My point I was trying to make is it seems like they've stopped doing the sexualized thumbnails for quite a while. I'm still scrolling down trying to find maybe this one a little bit. Her boobs are out a little bit. This is from 9 months ago though, so it seems like we see. But then, like, this one's not sexualized, not sexualized, not sexualized, not sexualized, not sexualized. The only point I'm trying to make here is that it seems like potentially she expressed that she was uncomfortable, so he stopped. Or he just got bored of it and felt like they weren't actually helping. Both of those are possible. I'm just bringing it up for context. Here we go. Okay, yeah, so we keep scrolling down. All these are non-sexualized. Then we get to a year ago where we have like a sexualized thumbnail there. even before that, not all the videos were sexualized. So it does seem that they were engaging in a little bit of like the no sexualized here, nothing here. They were engaging in it for views potentially. It doesn't seem as widespread as I thought. Here's another one. This is the second one. Like they have another, sexualized thing. All these ones aren't sexualized. I think it's just important to bring up for context. This one's not sexualized. Or maybe the girl gets stuck in the claw machine. It doesn't. The way that they did it isn't like my stepsister is stuck in the washing machine. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like they did it that much. This one maybe, but I wouldn't really say so. This one, yeah. There's so far we've seen 3 of her butt at the claw machine, but for the most part, it doesn't really seem to be as rampant. I mean, maybe the video still have more sexualization in it. Yeah, there's another one. But it seems like it stopped, is what I'm trying to make the point of. Anyway.
Tell me they love the way I dress or they love the way I do my makeup and stuff. So when
maybe he deleted it. I kind of doubt it because he has them there. So I doubt that he deleted a bunch of like those thumbnails or even changed them after the fact.
The pandemic hit, I felt more trapped and isolated than ever. And I think this is something that we saw a lot with people's relationships during the pandemic. Everybody kind of realized something about whoever they ended up locked down with. And for me, I was already coming under like the realization that this is like seriously like abuse, what's happening to me.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that they didn't exist. What I'm saying is that like it seems like they stopped making them. Right? Those were all over a year old. I'm just saying, it's just for context.
And I just did not know what to do about it whatsoever because we were already this glorified couple. Like, it may come as a surprise, but even before the memes popped off and we got popular on TikTok, we were already this glorified couple that thought that we were just so perfect together. And I honestly have no idea why, because looking back, he was constantly speaking over me in every video, speaking over me in every live stream. Like, I kind of don't understand how people didn't really notice. That's a whole other story, honestly. I think only people who have really been through abuse or witnessed it already.
So like I'm just kind of like maybe I'm personalizing some of this because I do content with my wife sometimes and like I do speak over her sometimes. I don't do it to like be manipulative or abusive, In fact, she makes a joke out of it and says like, "Oh, she lets me do it," but it's because I'm like the personality and she's like the side character kind of a thing, like not in a negative way, but like I'm the person, I'm the content creator, and like we make content together. So like it takes some kind of a lot of times I'll contextualize what she's saying because she has a normal perspective on things, but people are annoying and stupid. So like I need to explain what she means sometimes to the fucking social media audience of cancel cultureites. You know what I mean? Or basically I'm just mansplaining because she's a dumb woman. Yeah. I'm just saying some of these things by themselves don't create a manipulative situation. I think it's important to like, I don't know. I'm just trying to talk about it because I know that like after a breakup happens that like, you have the worst interpretation of everything possible, like these relationships get very toxic and I'm very apprehensive about like truly heavily engaging in these things, especially since like, again, I don't think she wasn't groomed. I mean, this wasn't a grooming scenario. Grooming is a form of manipulation. You could be manipulated without having groomed, like grooming would require a scenario where like he knew that it was wrong to date a 17-year-old. I don't think that he did. His entire family seemed fine with it. Her family seemed fine with it. She seemed fine with it and he seemed fine with it. I understand she's the victim because she's young and impressionable, but it doesn't mean that he was intentionally like, grooming I would say is more reserved for like, it's like, so your 40-year-old dad's best friend is like talking to a 14-year-old and taking her out to dinner and maybe buying her a little jewelry and treating her a little bit like a girlfriend, and then over the years until she hits 18 and then she's like, wow, I really like this guy. He was always so nice to me. I'm going to date him. Like, that's grooming. This seems like she got in that she engaged with someone. Like, they dated. And he was an asshole,
Can like detect it when they see it happening. So as the pandemic kicked off, I really started rationalizing to myself, like, why am I in this relationship? I, at the time, didn't have enough money in my account to like comfortably move.
Yeah, I understand that. But I worked through the whole pandemic, so.
Move out and pay to have all my stuff moved. I didn't have a car. I still don't have a car. And not only that, I also knew that it would be harder than ever during a freaking pandemic. It was just terrifying. I was also, of course, just genuinely scared of the pandemic like everybody else was. I really thought to myself, am I going to die without ever having felt love from somebody who hasn't abused me? Like, is that really what's gonna happen? Am I gonna die with my abuser? And the whole relationship turned especially and aggressively rocky during this lockdown. This was mainly, but not limited to, the fact that we both have insanely different views when it comes to political matters. Matters that shouldn't even be political, to be honest with you.
I'm curious where this is going.
Because this is regarding human rights, and in my eyes, human rights are not political. It's just
I'm just we're going down the Twitter sphere a little. Okay, let's go.
Are you a good person or are you a bad person, honestly? So basically,
dude, I feel like we're getting into like political conversation, and I get a little Just keep going.
I found out that the person I was dating and stuck in this godforsaken apartment with, was an absolute bootlicker. And I found this out at the absolute worst time because there was nowhere to go, everything was closed, there was just abandon hope, all ye who enter Earth right now. It was a total hellscape. And I'm sorry if this sounds petty, but the most egregious part of all of this to me was the fact that he would make fun of me so aggressively for supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, while at the same time posting how he's an ally on his story on Instagram, which goes hand in hand with his entire personality, honestly, because if you believe anything he's telling you for 1 second, just know that he's a great actor. And that is what we got famous for after all, right? Because he's such a good actor. Like every day
I would need some more like information on this, because this is so open to interpretation. Like, first of all, it's totally possible that like he hates BLM and he's just put up a fucking black square for attention, because you have to do that on the internet, or some people feel like they have to do it on the internet. It's also possible that he's a supporter of BLM but doesn't like the looting and rioting. You know what I mean? Like, there's so open to interpretation here. I get like listen, we had a very politically charged summer. I know it because that's when I blew up on TikTok, when I was talking a lot about, like, I actually talked a lot about like BLM and stuff like that. And like, I was like a supporter. Not a supporter of the looting and hiding, of course, which makes me such a piece of shit, man. I understand how tensions could be like riled up, but I don't know, man. I'm getting some Twitter SJW vibes a little here.
I would wake up and have to prepare myself with like a whole facts sheet so that I could argue with him, and it didn't even matter because every single time I brought up an excellent point from my perspective, he would completely ignore it and just loop back to his bootlicking self. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
It sounds like they had petty conversations about politics. That's most people. Most people are really dumb politically. I'm more educated than most people. I'm still dumb politically. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people are really fucking dumb. I just feel like they would have dumb arguments about fucking politics. And this is where we get into the trash throwing, and it kind of hurts the main point, because like, if your interpretation is like dumb bullshit political conversations are a point of some form of abuse, and then it's like, what the fuck? Basically, she said she was stuck with this guy. Was she stuck because he said he'll kill her if she leaves, or was she stuck because she couldn't find a place to go? Those are very important conversations to have, man. Because, like, for instance, I had an ex who, when I tried to break up with her, would be like, I'm going to kill myself if you break up with me. Now, that's an abusive tactic to keep you with somebody. Okay? An ex, not like my direct ex, I'm just saying. But I've had an ex who said that. But if she's like, I want to leave, and he's like, fuck you, no, please don't go, that's not abusive. That's just begging. But if you're like, I'll kill you or myself, like, that's abuse. You understand what I'm saying?
Sorry, maybe this is a little petty, but I think it actually is necessary to include this because of just how much of his online persona is absolutely fabricated. I felt totally disgusted by his rationalization of police violence, and I made that very clear to him, so much so that I told him I was disgusted with him, at which point he said that he was just kidding, and he was saying it to get on my head, something that he always loved to say whenever he said something totally obnoxious and not okay. I kind of had to rationalize this to myself as some kind of like totally senile sense of self-hatred. He'd say, I'm just kidding, and I just wanted you to shut up, and I'm part black, so I can say whatever I want. This just didn't sit well with me. It just does not sit well with me. It doesn't. I spent weeks ignoring his sexual advances, but every time I was unresponsive to his advances, he would guilt trip the ever-living shit out of me. So I started spending like 2+ hours every night in the shower trying to avoid this whole confrontation, because at the end of the day, once he whittled me down enough, once he guilt tripped me enough and made me feel bad for making him feel insecure, I would just be like, okay, fine, and I would do it, and I would just be grossed out the whole time. Leaving was also such a scary prospect because this was the first stable home I ever had, the one that we had together. But if I had any good sense, honestly, I would have realized that this was the opposite of stable, and this relationship was not worth having a home or a job. But he was very smart to dangle those things over my head because he knew
it's a very interesting conversation to have between a balance between trying to have sex with your partner and guilting them into having sex with you. Because, like, here's the thing, like, see, when we talk about this, there's so much here, but like, when we talk about guilt tripping, like, people guilt tripping other people into sleeping with them, it's definitely sexually inappropriate and like a violation. But when we talk, because like, hey, I'm not interested in you, I don't want to have sex with you, I'm done. When we talk about somebody like, I want to have sex with my partner, it's a little different because you've made a social contract that like you guys enjoy each other, and you not wanting to have sex, like, that obviously could be an issue in the relationship. Relationship, like, people go to marriage counselors over this kind of stuff. It's just it's a fine line between, like, he might have just been guilting the shit out of her into fucking him, possibly, also, but he also might have just wanted to have sex with her because like that was his girlfriend. I don't really know, man. This really reads, a lot of this reads, it's like Edward's a shithead, but this is trash throwing from a fucking bad relationship. I've been there, man. And you know what? All of you've kind of been there too. Like, would you want to have a public like fucking shit throwing festival about your ex relationship? No, because everybody looks bad. I'm not saying he was a good guy because it sounds like he was shitty. I'm just saying that like a lot of this seems to be chalked up to like when we saw the Repsion thing, like Repsion was a fucking victim, bro. This seems a little bit more on the line of like a shitty abusive situationship or manipulative relationship. That's like he's an asshole, but not that he belongs in jail. Meanwhile, like that other girl seemed to belong in fucking jail. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I'm not trying to diminish her experience or anything. It's just reading as like a fucking clown fiesta. But let's keep going.
I wanted stability. I really realized that this guy was obligatorily the opposite of me in every way possible. I hated everything that he stood for. So why am I still here? Why do I keep doing this? Because every time I try to tell him what he's doing wrong, he gaslights me into thinking that I'm the one who's wrong. Here I am, literally realizing that I hate this person that I love.
What does that mean? Like, because it sounded like he was gaslighting you before, but you didn't use the word gaslighting. Now it sounds like you guys are arguing about politics and like he doesn't agree with you. So now he's gaslighting you. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I hate this person that I work with, and I hate him for trying to get me pregnant at 19 for trying to leave him. I realized
really shitty.
all of this, and I didn't know what the fuck to do about it. I posted every goddamn day on my story. I'm so depressed. I want to kill myself. I didn't even care. Like, literally, I would just shit post about how sad I was. Meanwhile, he wouldn't care because he obligatorily did not care how I actually felt as long as I was there to be used to his benefit for whatever it may be. For sex, for thumbnails, for content, for filming, to bully, to make himself feel like a little bigger. As long as I was there for that, then that's fine. You can be suicidal. You suicidal.
The question really...
You suicidal. You suicidal. You suicidal. I'm sorry. I can...
Okay, great. My genuine question is like, why didn't she leave? This is one of those questions because, again, unless there is like a threat when you leave, because it seems like she has the ability to leave. Like even in COVID, like you could probably move out, maybe move in with your sister or something. I don't know. They seem to be doing well financially. I don't know, but it seems like every time they break up, he gets her to go back with her, but not through violent means. Like last time, it was, oh my God, I love you so much, I'm so sorry. And then he came in her, which was horrible. Then she got like an IUD, so she didn't get pregnant. So like, he's a shitty person. Why didn't she leave after that? Like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't sound like, because a lot of people when they're in abusive relationships, so like a lot of people when they're in like these broken abusive relationships, a lot of times they'll be like, I was afraid to leave because I feel like my partner would hurt me, or they would hurt themselves, or they would hurt our kids, or they would do this, that, and like, I was like, yeah, I understand. But so far from her telling in 51 minutes, we haven't heard any actual threat to her for leaving. He seems shitty, but he seems like somebody that's leavable. I'm just saying, man. Because I've been in scenarios where, like, if I left, my partner said they would fucking kill themselves. That's fucked up. And you want to know what? After we're not together anymore, I don't even think she's a horrible person. I think that we brought out the worst in each other. Sometimes that's how it happens, man. Sometimes you get into toxic relationships, and I've been in more than one toxic relationship, and you bring the worst out in each other, and you try to make it work. See, that's the biggest problem. Like, I've tried to make relationships work that I shouldn't have. And, like, with people that aren't bad people, but then you bring out the worst in each other because you don't leave, and like I don't even think that person's a terrible person. I think that was fucked up what they did, but like, you know, but you get my point. I'm just saying, like, you know,
I have to joke about this because if not, I think I might totally lose my mind. So all the arcades were closed due to the pandemic, so our content had to drastically change in order to try to stay afloat and maintain this YouTube channel that was, you know, already our career. We just wanted to make sure that
that seems like the complicated, like we have a career together, so now we're staying together. Yeah.
To keep paying rent every month, regardless of like what was going on in the world. There was money saved up from YouTube that went directly into his bank account via Google AdSense, which if you don't know, Google AdSense is how you get paid through YouTube. You get paid through the ads that get clicked on in a video. Anytime I brought up getting paid by him semi-regularly, like being on some kind of paycheck system, anytime I tried to bring that up, he would act like I was the total dickhead and a total money-hungry moron, as if I wasn't there every day with him, working alongside him, holding the camera, helping out, acting, being in the thumbnail, like, he has tried to make everybody think that I'm like this weird gold digging person recently. And it's like, dude, like, you do know I was also in the video, right? Like, I was always behind the camera. I was always in the goddamn costumes and everything. Like, I don't understand why it's a bad thing for me to want the money that I was owed from the channel, from working on the channel with him. And also just suffrage, dude. Like, repent, give me money, fuck you. I don't care. You can and why it's a bad thing for me to want the money that I was owed from the channel, from working on the channel with him. And also just suffrage, dude. Like, repent, give me money, fuck you. I don't care. You can say I'm a gold digger, but I literally worked alongside him and I wanted the money because all the money was going to his account and it was up to him to write me a check and give it to me at the end of our relationship.
Did you report it to the IRS, ma'am? I got her. If you report this to the IRS, guys, you can get a portion. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Which honestly, I know he dragged that out so much. He dragged it out so much, but we'll get to that. But because all the money was going to his account and it was up to him to write me a check and give it to me at the end of our relationship. Which honestly, I know he dragged that out so much. He dragged it out so much, but we'll get to that. But
it sounds like she wanted some money for her work. I get it.
Yes, if I bothered him enough, he would send me money through PayPal. So I'm not saying he never gave me money. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he did guilt trip the hell out of me for wanting a somewhat stable paying system. In fact, when the YouTube channel started, I really had to fight for him to deposit any of the money to my account at all. He said, oh, if you want anything, because I got fired from Target, so I didn't have income coming in anymore. And he said to me, no, if you need anything, I'll just buy it for you. And I told him, honestly, I don't want to ask you for everything that I buy. Like, I don't want to need like tampons and shit and be like, can you please buy me tampons? Like, what kind of shit is that? Like, and I'm working with you. In fact, I felt more like his daughter or his coworker.
I'm just trying to, because it sounds like he wouldn't pay her, which is shitty, but also like they're in a relationship, so he might, I don't know what, see, this is the thing. He could have been like, oh, if you want anything, you can just come to me. Like, but like I do that with my wife. I'll be like, if you will, just take my credit card. Like, I don't care. He could be doing that, or he could be like, oh, you really want tampons? What are you gonna do for me? You know what I mean? That's the difference between a healthy, just like relationship where you share your money versus like a manipulative tactic, and that's kind of where we're trying to figure out. We have to figure out which one is it? Which one is it? Like, where is it on the spectrum? You know?
Or both than being his actual girlfriend. The wholesome cringe content was born out of Chuck E. Cheese going through a bankruptcy. So basically, we saw I was going through bankruptcy. I posted a video about it on this channel to test the waters.
Somebody said, how long? Oh my God, how long is Papa going to talk about this? I have a genuine question. Like, how long have you been watching me? Because this video is an hour and a half long. I have it on like 50% increased speed, and I'm going to talk about it until it's over. So there's 35 more or 40 minutes of this video left. 38 minutes of the video left. We'll be here for like another maybe hour. So like, I feel like there's no way that you've ever watched my content before. You have 7 messages in my chat. Like, who the fuck are you? Where did you even come from? Because you didn't come from YouTube, because then you'd be like, yeah, Papa's doing his normal thing. You didn't come from Twitch. You come from TikTok? What are you, like 14 with the, like, listen, I just want you to know, on TikTok, I make 15-second videos. On YouTube, I make 4-hour-long videos sometimes. You know? So, I'm not talking about you, Crazy Fist. There was somebody named, I don't know, Balls Liquor 5000 or something. I don't remember. I can't even see the person. Anyway, imposter detected, exactly.
And see if it would do good. And it did. So on the main channel, we pretty much milked the crap out of it, and the rest is honestly history. We eventually went viral on TikTok. But did you know that just 1 week prior to us going viral on TikTok, I tried to break up with Edward. I tried to break up with him. I told him, honestly, I can't do this anymore because every day that I'm with you, I am not healing from the wounds that you have created for me. But just like always, he convinced me to stay. And then boom, the next week we were all over the internet with everybody calling us couple goals and saying we're—
See, this is the problem. It's like, we tried to break up a week before. Well, what happened? He convinced me to stay. It sounds like what she's doing is she's admitting she has the ability and capacity to break up with him even through COVID, and she just doesn't do it. And like, I've been there. We've all been there. It's fucked, man. It's hard. But you stayed consensually with him at this point. You made the decision as well. He convinced you, but like, he didn't say, I'll fucking kill you if you leave. So what am I supposed to think, man? You know?
we're so cute together and so perfect together. We were told—
and you know, there's a job thing here. This is why you shouldn't really work with your partners unless you're like really with your partners for a long time, like married. Even then you shouldn't, for the most part. Like, you need a good level of separation. But now there's a dynamic. They work together, so it's very difficult for it to break up. Especially since it's a very interesting phenomenon is that when you're together with somebody, even if they're really shitty to you and you're mutually shitty to each other, even when you're together, you understand why. A lot of times, and I'm not saying like abusive shitty, but like there are people who are just assholes to each other. Like they bring the worst out of each other. I've been there. And you break up and you're like, you know what? I understand why you're an asshole. And then, they'll understand why you're an asshole. You understand why they're an asshole. It's life, man. Then after you break up and you start thinking and you're not together anymore, and the person isn't a human anymore, and all of a sudden your mind starts rolling. And it's like, oh, yeah, you know what? This was shitty. And it probably was shitty. And they did this for this reason. It's like, yeah, they probably did a horrible thing for a bad reason. But then, like, you're forgetting the shitty things that you did. I'm just saying, man. Like, it's kind of how shit works.
Totally glorified turd of a relationship. All eyes were on us and observing us. Like everybody was scrolling through each one of our Instagram posts, looking at every single comment, trying to find out if we're problematic, basically. And my ex aggressively told me that I need to go through all of my posts and make sure there's not any pictures of us together from when I was a minor, or any comments or anything. So I archived everything but one thing. And I honestly did it on purpose. I kept one thing up on purpose, and it was a picture of two birds hugging, and he was tagged in the photo, and it was from 2016, early 2016.
So that makes sense. So here's the thing. I want you guys to, this is the way I'm interpreting it. Everybody thought it was fine that they were dating when they were of an inappropriate age range. Then time went on and they're online and we're realizing, yeah, that was really wrong. So now he's like, oh, we should remove that because it makes us look bad and people won't get it. I still think it's really wrong what they did, but I don't think that there was like this intentional, like, oh, I'm gonna get with this 17-year-old. I know it's wrong, but like I'm gonna do it. No, it seems like their family social structure, like both of their family structures were totally okay with this. And like that's the like, intent is a very big deal. We can call something inappropriate, but if it's not intent, like, intent is a very, very, very large factor when it comes to everything. And if we remove that intent, like I don't think that he was like, yeah, 17-year-old girl. He seems like a shithead, but I don't think that this isn't grooming,
when I was a minor, but it was such a hidden thing. It was something that you would not notice unless you were extremely investigative, which in a weird way, I wanted it to be exposed. I wanted it to be all over with and final. I secretly wanted to see this whole thing.
But she could have just left.
Crumble to the ground. And you know what?
This kind of seems a little shitty. She's like, I wanted to see it end. You could have just left, but no, she didn't want to see it end. She wanted his career to be over. I think that's kind of shitty. You know what I'm saying? I'm just being honest with you. I wouldn't even like judge her in this like negative way where like, oh, what an asshole. I would chalk this up here to like, this is what happens when people stay together when they shouldn't be together. It's a shitty, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even negatively judge her because like everybody's been there. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're like, oh wow, you've been there, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
But somebody actually did find that post and made a TikTok about it, saying that basically there's just no way. Like I had to have been a minor when we started going out. And when he found out about this, he was pissed and he forced me to leave a comment saying that, no, this isn't true. This is a lie, which basically is honestly dumb that anybody even uses that comment as proof, because literally the whole TikTok is proof.
Well, my question is like, why did you say it then? She's like, I wanted it to blow up. So then why didn't you just support him? I'm really confused about what's going on here.
Irrefutably so that we at the very least knew each other or were flirting or something when I was a minor. Like,
yeah,
how can you use that comment that he forced me to put there as proof when the TikTok itself is irrefutable evidence? And if you still want to fight me, I have so much more evidence. I posted it on Instagram. But I truly do believe that the reason why people are willing to ignore blatant evidence is just because they don't want to lose their parasocial little buddy. But basically, when I left that post up instead of archiving it, I don't sound stupid, but I hope that somebody would just hear my invisible screams. I wanted somebody to hear my invisible pleas to get me out of this, because I was.
But see, that's the thing, though. That's the thing that I don't like. Is she's like, I wanted somebody to get me out of here. She could have just left. She's made it very clear that she could have left, but he just wanted her to stay. It's a sad thing when somebody loves you more than you love them. But like, it doesn't mean that you have to stay with them. And like, you could have left. You've made it pretty clear you could have left, man.
Having trouble getting out of it myself. In fact, I honestly thought that I might not ever be able to do this at all. It seemed impossible. And when we were blowing up, he actively wanted me to play into this whole concept.
I get that too, though, like feeling like you can't break up. I do get it. Like, I'm not saying that like she's a terrible person, because I get like knowing you can break up, but like, you know, maybe it'll get better. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe it'll get better. That's like I get it. I'm just saying, man. But that sounds like more what she was doing. It sounds more like, you know what, I can make this work. I can make this work. I could just, 40 more years, you know what I mean? More than anything else.
of
she
us
could have
being
left.
couple goals. For instance, one story comes to mind where he's feeding me ramen and looking at me like lovingly. And I remember right before we filmed that, he said, let's do this. They'll love it if we do this. It was literally so fake. So much of this is so fake. It was so orchestrated. And I felt so used because
It's also possible that like it was fake for her, but not for him. That's kind of a fucking like, you know, like listen, some people on social media will like, oh, let's make a picture that makes us look like we're in love. Doesn't mean they're not necessarily in love. I'm not even saying that, but like it seemed like it seems like this guy's kind of shitty. I do think that, but it seems like he might have actually loved her, because at no point did he like ever express that he hated her. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, man, maybe she loved him less, but she just didn't want to give it up for some reason. Maybe she's because she felt taken care of. I understand that. You know, I've been there too, man. When like, you know, you're trying to give your all and then the other person's not trying to give you their all, bro. And it sucks, you know, it does suck. And I'm not trying to reduce like her problems, but maybe I'm projecting too much, but shit's fucked, man.
because as his girlfriend, I had not received this kind of treatment before. Like, I really didn't. So then, around 2.5 months ago, I was in the bathroom, minding my own business, getting ready, and this is when he comes up to me, and he says to me, there's this lesbian girl who keeps messaging me, and it's getting kind of annoying, and she's asking me for relationship advice, so I told her that she should ask you instead, because she's a big fan of both of us. Honestly, it was a very weird statement, so I kind of didn't even know what to say about it. I was just like, okay, like, what's her ad, I guess? And so I looked up the ad, and I saw that it was true that she was a fan of me and, you know, both of us. And this person ended up being my friend Anu, who you might know. Okay. I went with her to New York. But yeah, we started talking to each other and we really hit it off. We really started becoming friends. And after a few days of
I'm just like, because
talking to each other, she mentioned to me that she felt kind of weird about how Edward left things off with her. Because apparently, prior to me knowing about her, they had been talking to each other for a while. And right before he connected us to each other, he told her that he was gonna unfollow her and pretend like they weren't talking. So this struck me as totally weird and like behavior of somebody with like a very guilty mind. Like, why would you need to unfollow her and act like you guys weren't friends? Like, very, very weird, because I never told him that he couldn't have friends or female friends. It was him who always controlled who I could talk to. Anu also stated that she was not a lesbian as he claimed, and she was pansexual. So like, that's another thing. Why did you lie about that? So I obviously confronted him about this.
You know, not for nothing, it's quite possible. You were talking about how he was this fucking conservative. Maybe he just doesn't know what the fuck that means. You know what I'm saying? You know, if you told me I was like, I'm a demisexual, non-binary, queer, this, that, and other thing. I was like, I'd be like, I'd be like, hey, you want to talk to my wife? And I'd be like, let's tell my wife. I say, some gay guy wants to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Just fucking around, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe it was a joke. I don't know, or maybe he's just fucking dumb, because you were saying before he's just like big conservative. So
I was like, so why did you lie about her sexuality and why did you purposefully unfollow her? Like, this is very weird behavior. And in response to this, he went, well, she didn't have up all those slutty pictures of herself when I followed her, which the pictures are not slutty. Okay, they're not. They're fucking. They're pictures of her looking absolutely gorgeous.
let me see him. I have to confirm it.
And anybody can post what they want, and they are not slutty for that. But a bunch of these pictures that are quote-unquote slutty to him were, in fact, up during the time that they were talking and during the time that you followed her. So I'm like, okay, so you're lying about that, too. Interesting. Just another reason for me to hate you, honestly. To hate your stinking guts. And he also told me that he wanted a girl to talk to about our relationship problems. And I'm like, dude, you don't even talk to me about our relationship
It sounds like he was trying to fucking hook up a threesome. Pretty shitty, but you know.
Problems. Like, how are you gonna go looking for another girl to discuss issues with that you don't even discuss with me, if that makes sense? You know what I mean? He then proceeded to force me to look through like all their messages, which I honestly just skimmed them, but there was literally a bunch of messages that I saw where he went out of his way to talk to her. Like, even after he unfollowed her, he went the extra step to go to her profile and send her another message. All the while he was claiming that she was annoying and blowing up his phone. He went out of his other messages, which I honestly discuss with me, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? He then proceeded to force me to look through like all their messages, which I
see. What seems a little weird to me is that she's crafting this idea that like he was doing something wrong with her, but then he forced her, by her words, to read all the messages. So that's like weird. If there was something going on that was wrong, like really wrong, you would imagine that they would be in those messages. You know, it's a little confusing the way that she's telling this story.
he was claiming that she was annoying and blowing up his phone. Okay, if she's blowing up your phone, why are you going out of your way to talk to her still? Like, make it make sense. Gaslighting! Anu is one of my favorite people in the world. She treats every person with the same kindness and hospitality, no matter who they are or where they are. She also expressed to me that she was so excited that a creator that she admired was wanting to be a homie with her. And I really strongly believe that my ex misinterpreted this as flirting, especially since Anu is on the autistic spectrum. I feel like he didn't quite understand how or why anybody would ever be so friendly and just sweet without wanting anything in return, but just an earnest friendship. But
it's first of all, you shouldn't be seeking those relationships with other people when you're in a relationship. Although, you know what, I mean, I flirt a little bit here and there sometimes. My wife knows about it. Like, I don't know, it's just like some shit that happens sometimes. Like, my uncle used to do it a lot, but he was in a loving relationship. What the fuck point was I gonna make here? Oh, I was gonna talk about how, like, it's really weird that, like, men are taught that if, like, a girl shows any level of, like, is nice to you, they must want to sleep with you. It's a weird thing we teach in society, where it's like, in general, I feel like we teach it to everybody. Like, if somebody of the opposite, gender or sex or whatever, goes like, hey, you look good today. It's like, oh, you want to fuck me? Or it's like, hi, how are you? You want to fuck me? You want to fuck me? You know what I mean? If somebody's perceived as attractive and they're, like, moderately nice to you, it's like, you want to fuck me, don't you? You know what I mean? Crazy.
this shouldn't even surprise me because he doesn't believe that men and women can be friends, which is absolutely—
It is very difficult for men and women to be friends. Yeah, I agree with that.
Horseshit. So I ended up spilling my guts about him to her, and she ended up really, really validating my feelings on all of this abuse that had occurred. And Anu told me, listen, you really need to get out of this. You're saying that you are going to kill yourself because of this relationship. Do not let your abuser have you kill yourself. Do not die for your abuser. And she told me, hey, I'm going to New York.
Who was she telling that she was going to kill herself? The friend? That sounds a little... Listen, man, I don't know. That makes me uncomfortable. So you're in a relationship that you can walk away from, but you're telling your friend you'll kill yourself over it. That sounds a little bit like you might be like trying to maybe be a little bit emotionally provocative towards your friend. Like, I'm gonna kill myself, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's so sad. You have to," you know what I'm saying, man? Feels like too much.
York in October, and I'm gonna meet up with a bunch of girlfriends. You should come with me. I think it would be really good for you.
Listen, also, I'm gonna say something. I know this isn't like, listen, man, I know people with autism. They're good people, but one of the issues with autism, of course, is that it makes it a little more difficult for you to interpret social situations. That's something that we know. I think if the person that validated her feelings that she was being abused is somebody that has a difficult time fully understanding social constructs and like true interactions, maybe that's not the best place to validate it. I'm not saying that it's invalid because of that. I'm just saying it's a factor, because that's what she's saying is what validated her feelings that she was being groomed and abused. And it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to be a fucking asshole. I'm not saying don't have friends with autism. Of course you should. I'm just saying, like, that shouldn't be your, like, that's my definitive point of, like, I don't know, man. I'm just saying.
Because we're all going to be there for you and we're all going to support you. And I spontaneously said yes, because I knew in my heart of hearts that I truly, truly wanted to go. And I also knew that I did not want to be with my ex. I knew it would be really good for you, because we're going to New York in October, and I'm going to meet up with a bunch of girlfriends. You should come with me. I think it would be really good for you, because we're all going to be there for you and we're all going to support you. And I spontaneously said yes, because I knew in my heart of hearts that I truly, truly wanted to go. And I also knew that I did not want to be with my ex. I tried to quit the channel a few days after agreeing to this trip, and he made it clear that it was honestly a job that was unquittable. I told him that I wanted to follow my dreams and work on Nikki Land and Crime O'Clock, and that I couldn't stand working with him anymore because he was such a tyrant that sucked the fun out of everything and the fun out of life, and then always literally shat on every idea that I had, and then pretended as if I was the most unhelpful person in the world and as if I wasn't doing anything, when literally anytime I would try to suggest things, he hated it. It was a constant fight to inject my humor into these videos. Like, I was lucky if I got 1 or 2 lines that he agreed to let me put in the videos, when it's supposed to be both of our channel. And my vision for the jokes was always way more nihilistic than his and a bit more bizarre. He said, okay, you know what? You can take a few weeks off, and when you come back, I'll actually listen to what you have to say. I promise. But honestly, I was so over it.
Well, it's possible that she just had a sense of humor that didn't align with the channel or audience that they had. Because she's like, she had more nihilistic humor, so she had like darker humor. This seems like a channel for kids. It's fucking Chuck E. Cheese 3 a.m. videos. You know what I'm saying? I know that's like a little bit bizarre.
At this point that I couldn't give a shit. The only thing that I gave a shit about, and I still do, is the fans of the channel that still appreciate me and treat me like a human being and are just there and are supportive of everything I've been there for. Like, I have so many great, awesome interactions that I'm so grateful for, and all these awesome people that came out of that channel. I love the fans. I appreciate the fans, and I'm sorry if I never communicated as much as I should have, but I was also going through all this abuse while doing these videos. So the fact that he now tries to say that, oh, I hate the channel and I talk crap about the channel, dude, come on. You stalked me on one live stream where I said arcade cranny ass and you're gonna use that against me. You know I said that because I was totally suffering during the whole era of the cranny ass. I was just suffering. I mean, I have a lot of bad memories having to do with it. It's not that I don't like the fans. I love the fans. I never said I don't love the fans.
Yeah, I feel like the first half of the video is genuine, and it's just really devolved from there. It's so it sounds like she had like a pretty legit, like a valid like feeling of frustration for the first like 30 or 40 minutes. And now we're kind of spiraling into a point where like she could totally leave, but she simply isn't. And she's trying to make it seem like she was this horrible victim, but she could have left. And she even tried to, and he was like, no, please don't. That's it. You know? Like, imagine no, please don't was like abuse. Like, you're like, oh, if your kid was like, oh, I don't know, I gotta go to work. And your kid's like, no, please don't. It's like, my kid abused me to stay at home. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have left, man. And like now you're like, I'm gonna kill myself because he would. I felt like I couldn't leave. You could have. And so far, you tried to quit like 3 times in an hour and 5 minutes, and not a single time have you ever said that he threatened violence in any capacity.
And I appreciate you who are watching this so much, especially those of you who are not calling me an asshole and a whore for leaving my groomer. I especially appreciate you because you're very empathetic. Thank you. So I tried to break up with him like 4 times in a row around the same time, and each time he was like, no. Which is like, honestly, so stupid that it's like comical almost. And he would
just leave the house.
Sit next to me and plead and beg for hours, even after I said, no, I do not want to give you another chance. No, I do not want to give it another month. No, I do not want to see how well you think you can treat me. No, I don't want you to try to understand my interests now. It's been 5 years. I do not want you to try now. I don't. But he knew, because of us living and working together, that it would be very hard for me. And so he tried his ultimate best to make that pleading ever so empathetic. I confronted him about everything. That's something you also have to understand. Everyone's like, why didn't you handle this in private? I did. I did. I confronted him about this so many times. I told him, hey, I don't want to be with you because you groomed me, you sexually assaulted me, you took advantage of me, you used me, and also I don't want to be with anybody who tried to choke me out. Unfortunately, I do have to mention this.
What does that mean?
One time, he was so pissed at me that he punched me a bunch of times in the arm so hard that it literally turned black and blue. Like, really for several weeks, my arm was black and blue. And he grabbed me by my throat and shoved my head against the wall of our apartment and threatened to hit me again. As I was in that position, his arm was like up, his other arm was up. He realized that he was being insane, I think, and he let me go. And I ran outside of our apartment so fast. I didn't even have shoes on. I grabbed a pair of shoes by the door. And I went outside by the parking garage gate, and I was looking through my phone thinking, who can I call? Who can I text? Like, who can come get me? Can anybody help me? And I couldn't think of not one name at the time. And that was one of my lowest moments. I had to wear a jacket every day to cover up these bruises. And we were filming like carnival games and stuff around the time that this happened. And I remember he was trying to take a thumbnail of me one of these days, and he said, take off your jacket. And of course, he wanted me to take off my jacket so I can show my boobs more, get more of that clickbait in there. And I had to silently like signal to him like, hey, like my arm is still messed up. And he just seemed insanely frustrated by that. He was like pissed. And I was just like, well, man, you're the one who did it to me. The thing that you must understand about my ex and just...
So here's the thing with that, right? Like, that's really fucked up. I believe it happened. I mean, it's possible that she's exaggerating. I don't really know. And the reason is because my thing is like, that's horrible. And I know that, you know, she should have called the cops. It doesn't mean that, like, you know, I understand why it can be more complicated than that. But the thing is that that's horrible. That's abusive. That's really shitty. But that doesn't mean that every time she tried to break up, he got violent with her. He sounds like a shitty person that's abusive and manipulative. But, like, that doesn't mean that she has never expressed a fear of that happening when she tried to break up. It's always, he begged me to stay and I stayed. You know what I'm saying? So that's really shitty. It's horrible. Like, he's a real piece of shit for hitting her. I do question, like, why didn't you leave at that point or any of the other points? Because she even said, like, oh, he realized he was going crazy. And it seems like this was a one-off scenario. It doesn't make it right. I'm just saying, it doesn't seem like there's a pattern of this type of abusive behavior that would keep her from leaving.
abusers in general is that they will have an explanation for every fucked up thing they do to you. And they'll try to make it sound as plausible and logical and rational as humanly possible. His justification for me confronting him about grooming me was, who knows where you would be right now in life without me? Who knows? Maybe at one of those shows that you liked to go to back then, you would have got raped or you would have got murdered or something.
Horrible.
Who knows?
I mean, that is possible. You seem to have gone to some, like, those punk shows are pretty crazy, like Travis Scott events, but like that's obviously shitty.
Maybe I saved you. Or maybe you would have even gotten addicted to drugs if it weren't for me. And if our age difference is so bad, then why is it legal in New York? Why is the age of consent 17 in New York?
Yeah, no, well, that's the problem. See, this is one of those things that people need to understand.
Again, I have to say, it's about the power imbalance. It is about...
All right, it doesn't matter. So we have to understand something, and like we were talking about that as a big problem, is that if the law supports a thing, it makes it morally justifiable to people. Of course, laws are reflections of our morals. Okay? Laws are reflections of our morals are reflections of our laws. It's a cycle. We do have shitty laws. Most of our laws are pretty solid. I think that we're all pretty against murder, right? But most of our laws are good. Some of them I think are bad. Like our age of consent, I think is bad, right? So we would change it as a society. But if you have it where it's legal in New York for a 17-year-old to engage a 23-year-old, of course that's going to be like, yeah, I guess it's okay. Yeah, that's what the problem is that the law that signals to you that since this is legal, this is okay. It's weird that people don't understand this. I don't really get it. Fundamentally, people have this weird perspective like, well, laws aren't everything. Like, oh, so you only don't do things because the law says that you shouldn't do them? Like, a lot of people, yeah, you want to know why. So if your logic is laws don't do anything, let's get rid of laws. Well, why don't we do that? Because we'd have a fucking insane lawless society. Yeah, like, again, I think it's incredibly inappropriate. If it was my kid dating a 17-year-old 23, I'd kick his ass if it was, or her ass. If it was my kid that was 17, I wouldn't let them date a 23-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like we said, victim of circumstances, putting her into the situation. But like, I really can't shit on him for this. I think it's really inappropriate and gross, but that doesn't mean that this isn't the worst morally reprehensible thing in the world. Like, I can understand how this scenario happened.
About the power imbalance. It is about the grooming. It is about the manipulation. If the only thing keeping you from dating a teenager is the law, please seek help. You are sick. His justification for having hit me and choked me was that I hit him too. And the incident that he was referring to was a time where he was driving drunk in the car with me in it, speeding, acting like he was going to drive us off of a cliff because he was so pissed, and he had punched this pizza box that was in my lap so hard that it was mangled and there was like holes in it. There was holes in it, and he was screaming, hitting himself in the head drunk and saying, hit me, hit me, hit me. And the fight was about him bringing up his ex again to make me insecure, by the way. At this point...
Oh man, this is getting kind of messy. This is getting I don't know, man. This is getting like really messy. From a lot of the times where we talk about abuse, whether it's a man or a woman being abused, there is like some kind of like perpetual fear from the partner abusing them. That fear doesn't seem to exist. I wouldn't doubt that they both hit each other. I don't really know. She's not reading as somebody who like has, it's not reading to me like somebody who's the victim of like physical abuse constantly. Like, listen, I don't know, man. Like, I've had people that I've been with hit me. I mean, it was upsetting, but it didn't hurt because I'm 6'4", and you know, obviously, I date women. Not trying to be an asshole, but like, I wouldn't call myself a victim of abuse. Like, yeah, sometimes there were some shitty things going on. I don't know. It's just there's a lot of shit going on here, man. I'm not trying to be that guy because I don't want to seem like I'm justifying violence, but I don't know, man. There's a lot going on here. Yeah, it's all over the place. It's hard to take her seriously credible with all this stuff based on what that's the problem. When I started this, like, she was very credible to me. And as we've been going on, there have been a lot of things that are like she seems to be kind of playing like both like a little bit like, you know, a little bit of like the victim in some of this. Like the beginning, like the first 40 minutes, I still think was like really from the heart and like really like, you know, that was genuine. Now we're kind of just getting petty. Which makes sense because that's what happens. You get into a relationship, you have real problems. If you force yourself through them, petty problems start to arise because everything becomes a problem. If you're with somebody you shouldn't be with, everything's a fucking problem. Like the way that you fucking carry, like where you put your shoes is a problem now. Oh, why didn't you put your shoes in the shoe rack? You fucking idiot. Oh, why didn't you, you know, why didn't you move this? You know what I'm saying? Everything becomes a problem when you're in a really bad relationship with somebody.
He had already hit me before and choked me, like I was telling you about. So yes, I hit him in the leg and it wasn't enough to do damage, but I do regret it because I hate violence and I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's okay, and I feel deep shame for even doing that. I feel fucking deep shame, and for that, I fucking apologize. And I'm a piece of shit for that. I shouldn't have fucking did that. But in all honesty, it was not enough to do any damage, and I did it because I was fucking scared. I'm not a violent individual. In fact, I don't even like yelling at people or anything like that. If you get me to the point where I'm yelling at you, you have done something seriously despicable, because I do not yell at people, let alone hit them, let alone choke them either. Try to choke them, try to kill them. But one thing he didn't have an excuse for was the IUD incident, the SA incident. He honestly just ignored that I said that. Anytime I brought that up to him, he just completely ignored it. And I think it's because that's something despicable that even he has the self-awareness to understand is a bit despicable. He did agree that he took advantage of me when I was very young because he knew that I was a good girl and would do everything that he said. His words, not mine. He also threatened to kill himself multiple times during these times when I was breaking up with him. One time in particular.
Bro, I don't know why you would bring that up at the end. That doesn't make sense to me. That really doesn't make sense. I'm having a problem with this because here's what we know. We know that this video has been recorded over like multiple days. As you go through it, she keeps saying like, oh, I have a new video this day. Like, okay, we're at 11 here. This is what I'm gonna do, so I don't lose my spot. Okay, I'm not trying to be a fucking asshole, but like, okay, so here's how it starts. This is what she's wearing when it starts, and she even says it throughout the video. Then as the video goes on, she takes a break, she comes back, she tells like she's in a different outfit. She even says, this is the next day, I needed time to think about this. Then we have the next day here where it's like, okay, I have to think about it. We're in a new outfit. So we're at 3 days so far. It's possible. I don't believe people do threaten to kill themselves before leaving a relationship. Why would she leave those out? That seems like really, really, really important information. I understand forgetting a few details. Somebody saying, I'll kill myself if you leave, though. She's mentioned like 3 times she's tried to leave, and this is the first time he's tried to kill. I don't know. The credibility's all over the place. Like, how am I supposed to believe that? If you said that the first time, I'd be like, okay, yeah, like this is wrong. Like he put her in a scenario where she couldn't leave. But now we're an hour and 11 minutes in. We've had 3 conversations about how she could have left and she just didn't because he would beg her to stay. And now all of a sudden, he said, I'll kill myself. I don't know if I believe that. That needs to be established earlier, because now it just sounds like padding. You know, it sounds like padding here, especially since like there is a direct correlation between this day of her conversation. Like we're looking at before, like we talked about how very credible, very like empathetic towards like the beginning here, this here, and even this phase. But then like around the 50 minute mark, that's when shit goes bad. That's when she's on her day 3. This is the for the most part where she's, to my opinion, getting kind of petty. So I don't know if I believe this, man. It's hard to believe. Like you should have just brung it up in the first place, and I would have been like, yeah, that's really fucked up. But like now, where are we?
He threatened to kill himself and walked over to the kitchen to get a kitchen knife and held it to his wrist. And I said, you're not going to do that. You're scared of death. And I was right. He didn't do it. So, hey, if somebody is trying to use this tactic on you, saying they're going to kill themselves.
But you didn't even, so let's say it even happened. You didn't even believe it was a valid threat. So you weren't even, like, it still would be shitty if it happened, but you didn't even believe it was like a genuinely valid threat. So the manipulation, like, it was attempted but not successful. Bro, you could have left. I don't know, man. This video, we got like another 20 minutes.
If you're just because you're trying to break up with them, fuck that. It's not your problem.
Yeah,
and they're not going to do it, by the way. They don't feel guilt for what they're doing. They're not.
Some of them might do it. That's why I didn't leave. I felt like really bad. Like I feel like this is just great advice, but like, my advice would be like, you should leave even if they do it, because it's not your fault, your problem, and you can't let somebody else ruin your life for that. That's fucked up, because they might do it. Imagine they're like, yeah, they'll never do it, and then they do it. You're gonna feel like shit. It's unfortunate, but you might have to prepare yourself. Like if you're in a toxic relationship and you want to leave and they're like, I'll kill myself, you need to say like, please don't, and like maybe even call the cops and tell them to get professional help. But like that's not your problem, and you need to move on, man.
They're not self-aware enough to feel guilt for what they're doing, so no, they are not going to kill themselves. They're saying that so you'll stay with them because they know you're a good person and you would care if they died, even though what they did to you was wrong. So he took me on all these like elaborate dates during December, trying to like prove to me that it would all be different. It could all be like this forever if you just stayed. All the while I had this haunting anxiety about.
So they're broken up at this point? She said stayed.
He was wrong. So he took me on all these like elaborate dates during December, trying to like prove to me that it would all be different. It could all be like this forever if you just stayed. All the while I had this haunting anxiety about my upcoming trip that he had no idea about. And I was also secretly looking at all these apartments to move out to because I realized that I was gonna have to be the one to move out because he was never gonna let me break up with him or like get out. Like I couldn't even get him to agree with the breakup, let alone get out of the house. So I realized
Why couldn't you get out of the house?
I was gonna have to do this in secret because he would fight me every step of the way.
Well, yeah, for sure you could do that, but again, like you honestly could call a cop and say, hey, I'm breaking up with this person. I need to move out like right now. I need you to come and help me get all my stuff out, and I'll have a moving truck ready.
He knew. I told him that it shouldn't have taken 5 years and all this abuse just to get him to take me on some corny ass dates that I had always wanted to do. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. One of our last nights together, he attempted to give me a promise ring, which I told him.
Yeah, like you don't need to agree to break up. It's just one person says we're done and it's over. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I can't accept that because I don't want to be with you. And honestly, tomorrow morning, I have an appointment to go see an apartment that I already signed part of the papers for. I told him I wanted a chance to feel love from someone, which I told him honestly wanted to do. I'm sorry. In 5 years and all this abuse just to get him to take me on some corny ass dates that I had always wanted to do. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. One of our last nights together, he attempted to give me a promise ring, which I told him, honestly, I can't accept that because I don't want to be with you. And honestly, tomorrow morning, I have an appointment to go see an apartment that I already signed part of the papers for.
Wait, so she told him that she got an apartment that she signed papers for?
I told him I wanted a chance to feel love from somebody who wasn't an abuser one day. That same night, he went through my phone while I was sleeping and found out about my New York trip. He tried.
Okay, who cares about that? Like, so right now I'm focused on this, is that she was talking about how he wouldn't let her break up with him, right? I'm getting that right. But then she just admitted to him that she is getting a new apartment and that she's leaving the house. I'm fucking it sounds like, why didn't you do that in the first place? She seems to be trying to say that he forced her to stay with her, but there's literally no evidence of that in any capacity.
That I already signed part of the papers for. I told him I wanted a chance to feel love from somebody who wasn't an abuser one day. That same night, he went through my phone while I was sleeping and found out about my New York trip. He tried every tactic possible to stop me from going to see my apartment and to stop me from going to New York. He literally tried to convince me that Anu was insane and trying to kill me in some kind of Selena-esque weird murder plot. He began blaming everything on Anu, going as far as screaming, throwing his phone at the wall, and saying, that fucking bitch, I fucking hate her, saying shit like that, and trying to convince me over and over again that all of these thoughts, me wanting to break up with him, everything was put into my mind by Anu. Anu is the one who is making you think this. She's the one. Like, he was trying to invalidate the way that I felt so much. I tried to explain, please, can you at least give me credit for my own thoughts?
Listen, I don't know what Anu had said. Here's what I do know. It sounds like she's in a relationship she didn't want to be in, that the beginning of it seemed to be very manipulative and shitty. But she also said that Anu is the one who validated her feelings of like being groomed and stuff, which I'm telling, she wasn't groomed. Like, it's just, she wasn't groomed. So Anu doesn't seem particularly educated on these topics. So like, I'm not saying he's right about everything, but like he might have had a somewhat valid concern, like where she's saying things that aren't true. That might have been what he was expressing. He's probably overall wrong. I doubt, like, she clearly doesn't want to be with him, has frustrations from him, of course. And she's been in situations where she was like manipulated, and you can even say abuse. I mean, the whole pulling out thing, or like, coming into her is horrible. But she doesn't seem like, the Anu person doesn't seem like the most, like, the best validator of these feelings. Maybe a professional therapist would be better. I'm just saying.
I wanted to break up before I even knew Anu, but he was so convinced that if I hadn't met her, that we would have been in this amazing, happy, turd of a fake, happy relationship forever. Something he frequently said whenever I got close to a friend and told them about his behavior, and they were like, yo, that's awful behavior, was, this is why I don't want you talking about me to your friends. He does not want anyone to know about his behavior, because deep down he knows he's doing something wrong. He doesn't care about the moral aspects of it. He just hates being confronted about it. Classic abusive behavior. The last night when I came to pack my bags for New York, he
This is a really weird edit.
loomed over me the whole entire time I was packing, pleading, begging, crying, threatening to kill himself. He even pretended to have a heart attack. Yeah. He literally pretended to have a heart attack, I swear to God. And maybe I'm a little evil for saying this, but it was honestly a little funny. I was standing at my closet.
I don't think it's evil at all. This sounds shitty. To me, it establishes that she has no problem walking away. Why did she do this earlier?
Getting stuff out, and
because she didn't even believe him the first time he said he was going to kill himself. He sounds like a real piece of shit, like manipulative dickhead. I'm not gonna lie, but like, why? It doesn't seem like those threats were valid to her. So like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? I don't know.
He kept trying to convince me that Anu is evil. She's brainwashing you. Blah 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 blah. And so I got pissed and I ended up yelling at him. Like I said, it takes a lot for me to yell, but I was yelling. And this is what he did. He went. And he like ran to the bed in the living room and threw himself on it and was like, and I just ignored it because I was.
I mean, he might have been being manipulative. Maybe he was having a panic attack. I'd laugh too. It's fucking ridiculous.
Like, I don't know what the hell to do about this. I have tickets to go to New York tomorrow, so I don't know what to do about this. And so I ignored it, and what do you know? Just a few minutes later, he comes back and acts like it didn't happen. The tactics that abusers have are going to be relentless. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not gonna be easy to leave your abuser. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. However, once you see through all this bullshit, it will get a lot easier. It will get a lot easier to say no to them. So the last thing that I needed before I could exit the house to go to New York was my vaccination card, because you really, really needed in New York to be able to like do anything. And I knew it was in his car, so I went down, and this was the day, well, if you live in California, you might know what I'm talking about, where it was storming like crazy. There was rain, hail, lightning, thunder. It was going insane. Like the rain, I have not seen rain like that in years. It's insane. And my ex noticed this as well and tried to convince me that it was a bad omen. No, trust me. Listen, we're breaking up and it's raining like this and it's hailing like this. It's like the universe is like telling you not to go to New York. It's like telling you that like something bad's gonna happen to you if you go. Oh my god, it's so fucking frustrating to think about this. But honestly, it was a crazy intense argument outside with all of this background noise and hail and lightning and everything. It was as if the universe was gifting me this extra dramatic finale to my chaotic.
Hold on a second. I'm going to turn this up really loud for like 1 second.
Bullshit relationship, and that's epic, I guess. Thanks, universe. It wasn't a bad omen, definitely not. I think it was a good thing. It was
it just sounds like there's a fucking rain track in the back.
like cleansing. It was like, here you go, you're doing it, good, keep going. So when I got back up to the apartment,
Do you hear that?
I had my vaccination card. I had basically everything I needed. So I was like, okay, I'm going to my friend's house, and they're gonna take me to the airport tomorrow. So good. And my sister was waiting for me this whole time outside, so she could take me to my friend's house, and they could take me to the airport.
Maybe it's just static.
Yeah, you get what I mean. And she was growing increasingly concerned because
That's her AC. Okay, that makes sense. It sounded like she put a rain track in there because there was like rain going on. I was like confused for a second. It was just bizarre. Okay.
I was taking so long because my ex physically started blocking the exit. Like, he physically was blocking the door, pleading and pleading, grabbing my wrist, not letting it go, holding it so tight that I couldn't pull away. Just all of this just to keep me to stay in the room with him. Why? Because he can't stand losing the person that he could control. I don't know. I don't know what it's about. And I don't understand abuser mentality, but we can sure try, and we can sure try to avoid these kinds of people in the future. So not only was this process insanely hard to deal with, a whole other aspect was the public's reaction to me being in New York. That made the whole thing worse. I posted a simple TikTok even mentioning the idea of a breakup, and everybody went crazy. Love isn't real. Nothing is real. Say you're kidding. Get back together. You're in New York fucking people while he's over here crying. First of all, no, not that it matters at all, but no, I was not fucking people. I was trying to find... I'm leaving that in. I was trying to find myself and be away from him long enough to get my apartment stuff situated online. Another thing is that he tried to manipulate our young audience by going on a live stream and crying. Now imagine if I did that.
Well, I mean, like, listen, he seems like a shithead again, but he seems like he actually loved her. He just was not good at expressing his love. So, like, I don't know, was he trying to manipulate the audience, or was he just sad? You know, I mean, those are two different things, you know?
I went on a live stream crying about somebody who I abused for years to get sympathy. Like, you are... Okay. I honestly don't even...
Because it's one of those unfortunate things, too, man. It's like when one person is over the relationship and the other person isn't, it's much harder. Like, it's hard for the person that's not over. Like, she seemed like she clocked out a while ago. She seemed like she had clocked out very early in the relationship and just didn't end it. And he didn't clock out. You know, and like then she was, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think that he was trying to be manipulative. It sounded like he was sad, you know?
Anything to say about that? Like, the fact that people felt so sympathetic for him. Like, the man is crying about treating me like shit. Like, how do you feel bad about that? Like, he should be crying. So unfortunately, because I'm a dumbass who was trauma bonded, well, actually, you know what? I need to not call myself a dumbass, because guess what? Just because you're abused and you have a trauma bond with your abuser, it doesn't make you a dumbass. It takes time to stop letting that person manipulate you 100,000%. Even if you're doing so good,
My ears are hurting from when I turned the volume up before. Fuck. Oh, they hurt so bad.
close, you still might fall a little bit. Don't let that discourage you, okay? So let me just tell you right now, I was still in contact with Edward while I was in New York. I would talk to him on the phone sometimes against the pleads from my friends, and understandably so. Let me define a trauma bond for you. A trauma bond is a deep emotional attachment that develops in a relationship characterized by abuse that's emotional, physical, or both. Okay, here we go. And here is what it's like.
I mean, it's possible you had a trauma bond, but you seem to have checked out a while ago. But like, it sounds more like you guys broke up and you guys still had some feelings for each other, so you called him back.
Have a trauma bond with a narcissist. Trauma bonding occurs when a narcissist repeats a cycle of abuse with another person, which fuels a need for validation and love from the person being abused. The narcissist will condition somebody into believing these toxic behaviors are normal. So this is yet to be determined, because I need to discuss this further with my therapist, but I also think I suffered from narcissistic victim syndrome. Is a condition that occurs when a person has been living with or spending a significant amount of time with a narcissist. People who are struggling.
This is the problem with people diagnosing their own shit. Like, okay, these are words. Doesn't necessarily mean. Like, I wish you guys understand that everybody can identify with anything. You really can. Like, for instance, you guys, I guarantee you, if you went and looked up the symptoms of autism, you guys could diagnose yourself. Oh, I might have. Look at this. Let's go look it up. I'm being serious. People don't understand this. Okay, so let's see. What are the signs of symptoms of autism spectrum disorder? Let's see. Let's see. Do you guys have problems with body language and eye contact, or social interactions, or sensory input? Do you have rigid behavior, intense and unusual interests? All of you are listening to this and going, you know what? A lot of this sounds like me. Yeah, me too. You know what? Now, part of that's probably because we have like really shitty social interactions because of our online internet age. But the point that we're having here is that, like, we can all look at a symptom of a thing and go, I can identify with that. It doesn't mean that we have that thing. So I do genuinely believe that she had a shitty relationship with a shitty person. But that doesn't mean that she was like that she has all this, like, this, what was she talking about? Like this what was it? Basically like a Stockholm syndrome kind of a thing, where she was like so like emotionally connected to her. She seemed like she checked out a while ago. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like she has like this really like mentally connected perspective where she's like, oh my God, my abuser. Oh, it sounds more like she just has the regular level of caring for somebody who breaks up with somebody.
Struggling with narcissistic abuse syndrome often doubt their own self-worth or sanity. Sound familiar? Here's something else. What happens when you don't chase a narcissist? Which is what I did. I stopped chasing. Essentially, narcissists thrive on using others as a source to make them feel important, loved,
yeah, trauma bond,
cherished. If you ignore a narcissist,
I was talking about trauma bond. Yeah. Sorry, I used the word Stockholm syndrome.
And deny them their source, they may become enraged and try even harder for your attention, especially in ways that are toxic or abusive. To an absolute T. And it's not for my lack of trying. I would ignore him for several days at once because I was in New York for over a week. I would ignore him.
Wait, so how do you have a trauma bond if you were actively able to ignore him for several days? Sounds like he would just be very annoying, and then you would eventually get into it. Oh, trauma bond is literally called Stockholm syndrome. That's what it is when you look it up. Yeah,
He would blow up my phone. He would make me feel like shit, sending me all these text messages like, look, our cat, he misses you so much, and I miss you so much. It's not fair. How could you do this? Blah, 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 blah. And since I'm a fucking dumbass and a good person, I obliged, and I would talk to him, okay? And I talked to him and saw him a few...
But you suffering through him doesn't mean that you have like a trauma bond. All right, let's keep going.
times after I came back, like the first few days that I was in my new apartment. So yes, I let him come into my apartment like a fucking dumbass, and he uses this against me as if it's something that proves anything. You were in my ear, manipulating me, trying to pretend that you wanted to be my friend when you didn't want to be my friend, okay? And I know you're watching this. You didn't want to be my friend. You wanted something to use against me, just in case I ever spoke out about all of this bullshit. I know it, because of the way he recorded me passed out drunk, kissing my head without freaking consent. It blows my mind how many comments I get in every...
Yeah, that shit was weird, man. I was talking about that before, where like they got together. So like they broke up and he went to her apartment afterwards, which I guess was after she got back from New York. And that's very normal. That's very normal for people who break up to, like, you know, be back and forth with each other. And he recorded her, like, him kissing her on the head after she fell asleep. That was really weird. That's why I think, like, yeah, he's a really fucking creepy, like, manipulative person that you shouldn't date. That doesn't make him a groomer. That makes him, like, fucking weird.
Comment section, oh, your ex exposed you. No, I think my ex exposed himself by posting that. He recorded me passed out drunk, kissing my head, and then smiling into the camera. Does that Does
That
that,
was weird.
how is that a good look? And then I started ignoring him every day. Every day he would try to take me out on some kind of date. I started ignoring him. I was going to Halloween parties every night, just trying to live it up and also just ignore him. I was flirting with people. I didn't give a goddamn. I was like miserable, and I had a great, amazing Halloween week. And then I didn't give a goddamn. I was like miserable, and
She was miserable? I'm confused.
try to take me out on some kind of date. I started ignoring him. I was going to Halloween parties every night, just trying to live it up and also just ignore him. I was flirting with people. I didn't give a goddamn. I was like miserable, and I had a great, amazing Halloween week. And then I met the person that I'm dating right now, Matt, on Halloween, and it was fucking awesome. And I sent this narcissistic man a text explaining to him that I didn't want him to blow up my phone anymore, please, and stop messaging all my friends and my relatives asking what are my whereabouts. Like, stop messaging them, leave them alone too. Because first of all, you're my abuser, and I've been trying to ignore you for days anyways. I was ignoring him for straight up like weeks already. And then like I sent him a text like, hey, honestly, I really like somebody. Can you leave me alone? And he pretended to be understanding of it, but he would still blow up my phone, still try to FaceTime me. So annoying, honestly. I told him, I need you to give me the check. I need you to give me my share of the channel's money, like you promised. And he obliged. And a lot of people are like, why did you wait so long to speak up about this? Maybe because I wanted to make sure that I did not get like conned out of money that I worked alongside him to get. Maybe because of that. Maybe like a little bit. And also I don't even owe it to anybody to tell anybody this. I'm telling you guys
So she asked for money and he's like, okay, no problem. Okay.
this because I want to help. I want to help people. I would rather die than see somebody else go through this who's like a minor or a young person or a teen. I would literally rather fucking die, dude. It's horrible. It's
That doesn't really go along with the manipulation tactic. She's like, all right, here you go. All right. let's
suffering
go.
that many people do not understand. It's your own personal hell.
Or
And if
not
anybody
tactic,
watching
but
this
you
has a
understand.
sneaking suspicion that this is happening to them at all, do not ignore your gut feeling. I ignored mine for a very long time. Don't ignore it. Ask yourself, why torture yourself any longer? You do not owe your youth to these old ass men. You do not. Someone who attacks you and tries to tear you down emotionally and physically knows that you are too good for them and that you deserve better. Why else would they try to continuously brainwash you? Because they know. They know that you're too good for them. Stop minimizing yourself. And I just pray to God that if this is happening to you, you don't live with them, because it does make it that much harder. I'm not gonna lie to you, it does. But I'm telling you, these years of your life are not worth living in that house with them. It's not worth it. If you weren't actually an amazing person, they wouldn't have to try to shrink you down so you might believe that their stupid stinky ass is deserving of your love, your body, and your time. Sorry, not
Is that what the article said? They're stupid, stinky asses? Okay.
sorry, it's true. You're better than your abuser in every way, shape, and form. Even if you have to get 5 roommates, even if you have to temporarily move back in with your parents, please, like, this is not worth it. Your mind and body will take that toll. And if any minor is watching this and they're currently dating somebody in their 20s, please tell somebody about this. It's a crime for a reason. They're taking advantage of you.
Unfortunately, it's still not a crime in every state, though. Like if a 17-year-old's dating someone in their 20s. Although I'd say like a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old is like fine, like whatever, you know what I'm saying? But anyway,
It's
we're getting off
disgusting.
topic.
And something you really need to think about if you were in the situation is making
I guess you wouldn't call that person in their 20s though, because you're 20, not 20s. You know?
exit plan. So this is the only thing that has worked for me after all those years how I finally got out and started living and stopped dying is I had to make an exit plan. And one of the most critical things
It was an exit plan. You moved out.
about this exit plan was that me and my friend Anu put a list together of horrible things that he's done to me. And every time he would make me forget about the horrible things that he's done to me, I would look at the list. Every time he tried to manipulate me, I looked at the list.
Wait, so the exit plan seems more like for her. Like she would try to leave and he would be like, no, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then she just needed a list to remind her to give her the strength to finish the breakup. But there wasn't really anything preventing the breakup other than that they were together. You know what I mean? Like the other claims of everything else, they really didn't seem to be like a threat of violence. She said so an hour into the video, but the first 3 times that she said it, she was just like, oh, he would convince me to stay. Yeah, she was stopping herself. Yeah.
And it reminded me that yes, I do have very good, perfectly valid reasons for leaving this relationship, and no one can convince me otherwise. You must make a list of all the
That's
things
fair.
that they have done to you, to invalidate you, to put you down, to minimize you with their psychological warfare,
Let's see the list. I want to look at it. I'm actually just curious.
the abuse, physical, sexual, or emotional. Every time they try to manipulate you into forgetting what they did, you must remember, and it's gonna be painful. It's gonna be very painful, and I will recommend to you that you do seek out a therapist, okay? There's lots of great ways to get a therapist, and a lot of them accept co-pays, and I understand therapy is not always accessible for everyone, which is like super fucking lame and unfortunate. Something that I've done before, and this isn't a sponsorship, I should be sponsored by them, but it's not sponsorship, but I have done the free BetterHelp trial before when I didn't have any money, and that
I should be sponsored by them? You're just calling them a fucking bootlicker, and you're like, one of the really good resources is online therapy, which sounds great. And she's like, I should be sponsored by, I should be making money to help you feel better about yourself. It's like, oh, I get sponsorships. I just find it weird that we're having a really serious conversation about like getting the help you need in an affordable capacity. And she's like, I should be getting paid from these guys to advocate for this thing. If you actually believe in this, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like reading too much into it. Let's
did help me temporarily, but you can also choose to live, choose to cherish.
I think that was probably maybe it was like a too much like an unreasonable criticism. Anyway,
cherish yourself. I cherish you. I worship you. I don't want this happening to you. There are people that want to help you. No matter what you think, even if you're like, I don't have any friends, what do I do? There's people out there that would help you. There's people out there that would care and want to hear your.
Unfortunately, that's not true, man. Sometimes you're just a person that nobody wants to fucking help you, man. It's fucked up. I know there's a lot of people in that scenario that like they have nothing and they're with like an abuser. And they can't get away. This is one of like the true people that are abused. They don't have people to help them. They're in situations with like, let's say it's like a battered woman where they're with like a husband who has effectively cut off all of her relationships with her other family. They might have a kid that could be threatened. They have financial control. They don't have any friends. They don't even work because they stay home. It's no, man. You don't always have help, man. It's fucked up. And you know, you go to a battered women's shelter, and what do they do for you? They send you back. What can they do for you in any long-term capacity? Unless you have like a family that'll help you. And it's a lot of times these people that are in these scenarios that are being abused, they don't have structures of help. It's fucked up. It's fucked up, and I don't want to get like super political or whatever, but this is one of those things where like it's gonna sound so dumb, but I do talk about universal basic income sometimes, and I want you guys to really listen to this, is that there's a lot of people who are receiving abuse that can't escape. And I genuinely feel that like if you did have like $1,000, you could run away and like do something. You can make it work a lot better. Because even these homes, like battered women's homes, they don't really help you that much. Not as much as they can, man. You just go there and then you get fucking sent right back. It's fucked up, bro, and that's why I'm saying, man, like there's like a lot of shit like that's fucked. Sometimes you don't really have people to fucking lean on. That's the fucking problem, bro. You know, it's fucked up.
Story. It may take time too. In my case, it took me about 6 whole months just to like build up the courage to continuously and relentlessly say, I don't want to do this anymore, and keep going even when he made it seem impossible. It took a long time. I found people that are positive in my life and validate my experiences and are sweet to me, and that takes time too. It takes time to find that good system of people to help you, but there's people. There are good people out there. I know it seems hopeless sometimes, but there are good people. If you are in an abusive relationship currently, or you're suicidal, I'm gonna list a bunch of resources down below to help, because although my DMs are open, I am just one person. Like I said, I want to help as much as possible, but I do think you need professional resources as well. And if it comes down to it, there's the suicide hotline, which I've called them plenty of times saying, hey, ain't no shame in that, honestly. Last time I called the suicide hotline, you know what they told me? Whoever picked up the phone for me told me that they remind me of that I remind them of a Marina and the Diamond song. And I was like, okay, little self-esteem booster, I could use that, fuck it. I'm sorry, that was a lot. And I still probably left, I know I left a lot out. I still left a lot out, and this is such a long video. I'm sorry. And you know, you could call me money hungry all you want. You could call me a loser and that I have nothing going on in my life anymore. And even though I feel more alive than I have since I was 17. I feel more alive now than I have since I was 17. I feel more free than I've ever felt in my whole entire life. And the only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. So yeah, call me money hungry. But if this video gets monetized somehow, I'm donating the money to something for women that are getting abused.
Hey, listen, man, I'm on. Hey, hit the grind, dog. You know what I mean?
Meant it when I said this is to help people, okay? And I'm not
I watch with YouTube Premium, so you'll get money from that.
Fucking liar, like some people I know. So please, love yourself. Yeah, I don't know how to end this now at this point, because it's like, it was just so depressing. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I don't have to talk about it anymore after this. Honestly, don't expect me to talk about this publicly at all anymore. Unless I like die. Well, in that case, then I wouldn't be able to. But, also, I'm not planning to hurt myself at all. I'm just telling you, I don't plan on hurting myself, okay? Also, ex-boyfriend, if you're watching this, I'm not gonna be home for a while, for a long time, because I know you know where I live, and I don't want to see your car outside again, stalking me, so just don't even take the trip down here, because I'm not going to be here. I love you, everybody who supports me, and please, know the signs of abuse. Take everything I just said, and if any of this pertains to your current relationship, get the hell out of there. All right, that was exhausting. Good night. I'm going AWOL for I don't know how long. Bye. You know what, man? This video is not.
You know what I think the worst part about this video was is that there was no point in there where her septum ring was like even, and it fucking triggers me. That's my abuse.
Of Marina and the Diamond song, and I was like, okay.
That's my abuse. Listen, here's the thing. After watching this whole scenario, this is how, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is my kind of take on this whole thing altogether. This sounds like a young girl who was in a relationship that was inappropriate with Edward, right? She was 17, he was 23. Somebody with a history of being manipulated by older men, not having a like an actual support system through having like not great mother or father, very susceptible to these things, who met a 23-year-old. I think that all parties involved thought 17 was okay. It seems like they met in New York or some capacity or whatever. It was legal. Unfortunately, yes, the law does reflect our morals and it does justify things to people. Okay, like it's just the reality of the situation. I'm gonna tell you, like a lot of guys, especially men, who get into like fight or confrontations because somebody said something, this and that. You guarantee you that they would be fighting each other if it was legal. Like laws exist to stop people from doing things, right? There are laws across the fucking world that are horrible. There's 13 age of consent. It's one of the things. If we want to change that, we need to have more social conversations about changing the age of consent. I think it's inappropriate. I don't think that he has like a predatory, I don't think that there's a predatory aspect there when it comes to the age. I think that was just okay in their sphere. I think it's wrong, but I don't think that he was like, oh, I'm going to find this 17-year-old and groom them, because I don't think that he groomed them. Grooming is a much more methodical process where you go out of your way to have somebody develop a dependency to you that is like unbreakable, at the same time sacrificing other people's relationships and also prepping somebody for a thing that's like inappropriate, right? So like we were talking about it before, a 40-year-old, your dad's friend, really nice to you. You're a 14-year-old girl. He treats you really well. He knows it's wrong. He knows he can't do anything with you, but he kind of treats you like his girlfriend a little bit. He buys you nice stuff. He takes you out sometimes, and you do that for like 14, 15, 16, all of a sudden 17, and then you're 18 years old, and now you're dating because like he was so nice to you. That's grooming. That's like that would be grooming. That's a methodical process of manipulation and trying to get somebody dependent on you in some capacity. That's grooming, okay? This isn't grooming. This is them dating. Now, he does seem like a manipulative piece of shit. He did do some really shitty things. Absolutely. I don't like him. But the idea that he's a groomer? No. This is a systematic failure of like horrible broken families. Stay with your kids, dads and moms. Care about your kids. Don't be a fucking scumbag. I mean, that's the best advice I could say. A lot of this kind of felt like, I don't know. The thing that really gets me is that like there were multiple times she could have left and she almost left, and she just didn't because he convinced her to stay. She mentioned that he threatened to kill himself one time. That's obviously, if she took it seriously, that would definitely be abusive. But she was like, you're not going to do it. And then he didn't do it. And then she still stayed with him. That's really toxic. That's really shitty. But this really reads to me as a really bad relationship that two people shouldn't have engaged in, and they still stayed with each other. Honestly. And they shouldn't have. And I think a lot of us have been there. I've been there. I've been in a relationship with somebody that didn't reflect who I was as a person, and it didn't reflect who they were as a person. You bring out the worst in each other. You do shittier things because you're with somebody you shouldn't be with. It doesn't even mean they're both shitty, but they manipulate you, you manipulate them, and you do bad things to them, they do bad things to you. You guys act like shit with each other, and you make these passive aggressive hits back and forth. It sounds like a shitty toxic relationship that should have never been, and it's good that it's over. It was finally terminated. Thank God. That's all I could say. But this sounds like there's a lot of information that's probably missing. And I think that like we need to kind of stop airing our fucking dirty laundry on the internet, like this. Like this is a toxic breakup. This isn't this isn't a grooming situation that we need to really talk about, because this, that, and another thing. If she had made this video and said like, they removed the I was groomed, and it was like, oh, why I broke up with Edward, I still think that it was like shit throwing, because like I don't think you should be talking about private relationship shit in public, because it gets messy and you don't really know what starts and like where like the lies and truths starts and ends. But like the word grooming, it's just unnecessary. It's morally charged, and I don't think that it's appropriate to apply here. Either way, like I don't dislike this person, because just like we were saying, relationships get toxic. Everybody gets toxic. Your interpretation of everything that goes on becomes worse and worse and worse, right? Because you're in a bad relationship and little things bother you that shouldn't. Like I was saying before, like people have fights over leaving their fucking shoes in the middle of the thing, or like not taking all the groceries in the car, or like stupid shit. Like little things, because that's what happens when you're in a relationship you shouldn't be in, and especially when both parties kind of know it. So ultimately, my perspective on both of them honestly really hasn't changed, except I think Edward's kind of an asshole. But I don't really. It's fucking dirty relationship shit, man. Yeah, it's fucked up. But that's what I have to say about that.